Hello, 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 and welcome back to The 12. This is a show about the Women's Super League, aka the highest division of women's football in England. We are here to discuss all things WSL both on and off the field. Each week, we'll be breaking down games, showcasing stars, and highlighting important stories surrounding the game. My name is Deepti, and I'm here with my co hosts Marc, Thom Bomb, and Treb. And this week, it's about, unfortunately, yet another black female football player getting abused, either online or in person. In this case, it was online abuse towards Bunny Shaw following the Arsenal Man City match, the league match, not the League Cup one. But how many times have we talked about this, guys? And how many times have you seen it happen both just in general in sport, but like in both the men's and women's game? And it's, first of all, it's ridiculous that we still have this happening, but in this case, it seems we don't have too many details, but it seems like it was pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
it was bad enough for her to pull out of the Leagues Cup match. So she got, or from what we understand, she received the abuse after the Arsenal loss during the WSL match, and then eventually pulled out of going to the Leagues Cup match against Arsenal. What was it, like a few days later, a couple weeks later? So
Mm-hmm.
it was definitely that bad. Like you said, we don't have many details. We also don't have many players taking up for her, which has been the most disheartening part about all of this, because it's like you said, we've seen this in sports before, we've seen this in soccer before, we see it on the men's side quite often, unfortunately. I mean, we see it most prominently with Vinicius Jr. At Real Madrid. So it's not anything that players of color kind of don't know could happen to them at any point during their career. But it's really unfortunate, I think, to not have kind of the swelling of support that you would expect during this kind of thing, especially from her teammates. I don't think we've seen a single City player come out and be like, "This is wrong. We need to stop this." Like, I support Bunny. We've seen Lottie Wubben-Moy from Arsenal come out and stand up against it. We've seen Jordan Nobbs and Nikita Paris. I think Nobbs is at Aston Villa in Paris with Brighton. So we've seen some players stand up in support of Bunny, but in my opinion, we haven't seen enough. I think that this is terrible. I mean, it's very obviously bad and it's very obviously terrible, and I'm at the point where I just don't know what you can say or do to stop it. But I just wish, at the very least, that your teammates would all and your manager would all stand up and be like, "Yo, I stand behind my player. This obviously isn't right. We need to get to the bottom of who's responsible and try to punish them the best that we can." So
Mm-hmm. I know Man City put out a response saying that obviously they condemn it all and they've uh, shown the like messages to authorities and they're trying to investigate and see. But I mean, somewhat of a weak statement. It seems like all the teams kind of put out a generic statement
well, yeah,
whenever
it's like a
something like
basic
this
team statement
happens.
after it happens. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's like, this was bad. Our player was sad. We're gonna find out who did it. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
But like, you would want the support from your team that's like, look, to be even stronger, to be like, I'm not gonna accept this. Like, we will shut this down anytime we see
Mm-hmm.
it, anytime we hear about it. Like, even if it's from our own fans, like, it doesn't matter who it's from. Like, you have to have your teammates stand by your side. Because again, we see it on the men's side, and I think that's a big reason why so many people feel bad for Vinicius Jr., because he also does not have that support really from the league and from his team. They try to act like it doesn't happen at all. And when you do
Mm-hmm.
that, it creates this sense of feeling like you don't really belong. And the last thing you really want is your players, especially your star players, to feel like they don't belong, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And you shouldn't want that in your sport in general. Like, you shouldn't want that in the WSL.
yeah. So you mentioned Vinicius there, and one of the things that always stands out to me in terms of how he's spoken about is what he could do differently. Maybe he shouldn't wind up the opponent so much. Maybe he shouldn't, celebrate a certain way. And actually, like that's exactly what happened to Bunny Shaw against Hacken. right, where a coin was thrown at her, and then Hackens players placed the blame on her, and so forth and so forth. So yeah, I think it's the lack of support that's or the perceived lack of support that I think is troubling. Like, so sometimes I listen to Farrah Williams and Anita Sante's podcast. I think it's called Balls and Bras. But I thought Farrah Williams actually made a pretty good point where it's, that was an opportunity for the team to say, "We're not playing this match." So this would have been the League Cup semifinal, which is a few days after the league match versus Arsenal. But basically, for the players to stand up and say, "We're not playing this until we're satisfied with, you know, the process, whether there's an investigation or what have you." But yeah, I think that was an opportunity for to see solidarity, and we didn't see it. And I think, when we came together, we knew that we would have to tackle this subject at some point, but it's disheartening every single time. It's exhausting, and we're just talking about it, so I can't imagine, what it's what Bunny Shaw had to experience to the point where she took down her Instagram, to the point where the fact that she sat from a semifinal, like, I know she
Hmm.
wanted to play that and would have played that under normal circumstances, but it was I'm happy for her at least that she took a stand, that she say no, that she said, "No, you know what? I am going to prioritize myself and my mental health here because, it's unacceptable. It's just purely unacceptable."
Yeah. I'm glad it seems like she took a bit of time off completely, just for like her mental health because I don't think she was at training for a little bit after this happened as well. And so taking a
She
step
was not.
back, yeah. Um,
Um,
yeah, go ahead, Tom.
I think um, we addressed this on the lit stream on Thursday, and like I said, then the most important thing that I can say in this conversation is Bunny Shaw, you are loved, you are adored. Um, you you do not deserve what is happening to you right now. It is so unfair, and I'm so sorry that it is happening, particularly since the rumors have been that it's been from City fans, and not necessarily like from outside fans, which I think that is even like to me is even harder to take. Like Mark just said, how like exhausting this process is every single time it happens, and then when to know that there's a possibility that it was your fans participating in this makes it even worse. Um, and I think that is the most important thing that I can say is that Bunny, we are sorry that this happened to you, and you do not deserve this. Um, I guess you could say that last Thursday she called in black, and um, I think all four of us can like have had an experience where like we have felt uncomfortable based off of our um, race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, where in the workplace where we just needed a day to not be there, and Bunny took that day, and I'm not mad at her for it. I hope that she feels that she is getting the support that she needs um, from the club, from her teammates, from her manager. Um, the statement that Gareth made after the match on Thursday was, ooh, yeah, that was a train wreck. Um, he cleaned it up some for the Friday press conference before the FA Cup match, but um, for Pep Guardiola to come out and make a stronger statement than Gareth did, like, kind of says a lot about the state of the City women's locker room.
Mm, yeah.
I just want to say, like, real quick, like, that's also a big reason why I talked about the support from her club and from her manager and her team, because it's not, unfortunately, like, we can't just look at it as Bunny Shaw, because you look at the player who has stepped up for City in the last month, Mary Fowler is also a woman of color. You look at the player they just brought in, Carolyn is also a woman of color. And if, like Thom said, like we're hearing kind of rumors and whispers that the call was coming from inside the house, that this was City fans doing it. And if it is, obviously you're not really happy with results sometimes, and the City women have kind of hit a rough patch a little bit here and there. But I mean, who's to say that this won't happen to Mary or to Carolyn if things don't go their way, right? And so that's why I say it's important for the team and the club to really have strong statements of support, because you have other players on that team who this could very well happen to, not just in the far future, but in the near future. So it's like if you're not backing Bunny Shaw now, other players are looking at that and being like, okay, well, this happens to me. What's that going to look like? Especially because Bunny's perceived as being the star in City. I think right behind Viv Miedema, right? Like Bunny is the show. That is the player. They go as she goes, and to not fully back her or to be emphatic in your support of her, I think is a big problem. So.
I will also say that I think that this is where you miss your club captain being in the locker room, and like the fact that Alex Greenwood is rehabbing, so like she's not necessarily with the rest of the team. Um, Alex has already made strong statements in support of Bunny, like to Marc's point about the Hacken match. Um, like she came out and made like a large resounding statement. So you're missing a player that's playing with the player impacted, um, to be able to make that statement. And for a variety of reasons, Laia Alexandri, who is deputy club captain, is not going to make those same statements.
Yeah. I wonder if you're like a teammate, or if you're in this team, should there be kind of a joint, like a standard of procedure almost, if one of our teammates, if one of our players gets some abuse, like everyone should post something, everyone should make a statement, like almost make it a given that you do something like this, just to make sure that it is being talked about, because I'm sure she's getting support behind the scenes and it's not public, but public support is kind of what matters, because otherwise people are just going to
Well,
continue
public
doing it.
support is what the fans see, and if the fans are behind it, like they need
Yeah.
to know that what they're doing is bullshit, and what they're doing isn't allowed by the team. Like that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, they have to know that the rest of the team does not feel the way that they feel.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think everyone else needs to be a little bit more vocal in there, and especially in times like this, right? Like certain times, kind of having that behind the scenes support is okay, but I think in times like this, you need to be vocal in public with it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Do you
Yeah,
feel that, one more thing I was going to ask, because it unfortunately happens so often, do you think players are sort of, one, I think they almost come to expect it sometimes, like you were saying, but two, do you think they're kind of told to like push under the rug and like ignore, and not bring more attention to it? Or I don't know, because like you say, it is kind of surprising the lack of public support that we're seeing, but also just given how much it still happens, that what are players supposed to do? Like what is anyone supposed to do in this situation?
Um, I I honestly I think that the default response for a lot of people in the game, particularly somebody like Gareth Taylor, for example, would be to, I think maybe try to come across as heartfelt, and so forth, but then eventually say, yeah, look, we need you for this, we need you for that. Now, I think in the case of where Buddy Shaw sat out of training and sat out the match, I would have to imagine that, she had Gareth Taylor's blessing in that particular incident, but I think for most of the people who are not affected by this type of abuse, they would most likely say, or at least ask, like, can you push through it? You know, can you can you sort of get through this game and then we deal with it after type of thing, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like rest isn't always necessarily like it's kind of frowned upon almost. You
Yeah.
know, just like taking a game off. So because I mean, like again, like we see this in the men's game. I mean, we're seeing now more matches being stopped. You know, and actually like caught. You know, we're seeing stoppages, players walking off the field and so forth. But it's like it tends to be a process. You know, there seems to be an unwillingness to go there. You know, I think in terms of matches being rescheduled. I think football authorities don't want any part of that because of logistics and so forth. But
Mm.
something's got to give somewhere. So sacrifices have to be made somewhere, or else it's just the people who deal with the abuse are ultimately the only ones making a sacrifice as things currently stand.
Yeah, that's a really good point. But yeah, I guess just to reiterate, it's unacceptable. We all stand behind Bunny Shaw and obviously love her, support her, and want her to take all the time she needs to, you know, go through this and deal with this. And hopefully more people will come out with statements or like stronger statements condemning it. Um, it's never too late to say something about it. Okay. Shall we move on to games? We've got loads of games to recap.
Yeah.
We'll start with the FA Cup matches that were the fourth round matches that happened a couple weeks ago. The WSL teams involved, there were 6 WSL teams out of the 8 teams in this fourth round who played these matches. So first we had Everton versus Tottenham, and Everton won 2-0. Tottenham, both the men and the women are in the dumps right now. uh, but I'll run through all the scores and then we can go through some of the highlights of those matches. But Everton beat Tottenham 2-0. Brighton beat Durham FC 4-1. Liverpool beat West Ham 5-0. And then Arsenal also beat Bristol City 5-0. So kind of high scoring, several shutouts. One of those, again, where, you know, Brighton, Arsenal played non-WSL teams, and it was clear that they were like the favored, better team.
Yeah.
I actually think, like, for me, Liverpool West Ham 5-0 is kind of surprising given Liverpool's like latest trend and having them score 5 on West Ham, who were actually doing a little bit better than earlier in the
So
season.
they got some luck in that match. Like they got an own goal off of a set piece, like in the 3rd minute,
Yeah.
and then late in the first half, Amber Tisiak took a red card. So yes, they were up 2-0 at halftime. But this based off of Liverpool's result this past weekend, this result this result just kind of tells me is like, oh, we jumped on them early, and game state just kind of dictated that we had to keep jumping them. Also, we'll talk about it later. I feel like Leanne Kiernan had a revenge week of the ages against her former employer, in scoring 2 goals in 2 matches in 4 days against them, against West Ham. So I think that there are a lot of influencing factors on that scoreline for Liverpool.
Man, just shit all over their win that they had. The one good thing that's happened to them in the last month and a half.
Listen, I'm just calling it what it is. Like if Matt Beard's gonna like make me look like a fool because I said he was like the best
There it
coach in
is.
the
That's
like is the best
it's
coach
like,
in the
look,
league,
don't.
I'm gonna have to just be like, let me just take a different tactic completely and just call him terrible.
Oh man, what a 180.
Listen, you got to learn how to pivot.
Yeah,
That's true.
that's true. Admit when you're wrong. It's all good.
Um, for me, the scoreline that jumped out from this particular round was Everton to Tottenham nil. Um, I'll start with Everton. They were pretty active in the January window. We'll get into the details when we talk about the transfer window. But Kelly Gago, I believe this was her first goal in England. She came over from Nantes. She's a French forward, big physical presence, and yeah, kind of making an immediate impact. And I think uh, you know, I think this result in particular was, I think maybe a sign of better things to come for Everton. Obviously they've had the new owners come in. Obviously, the new owners have already made an investment in their women's team, which we all love to see. And with they win this match to set up a matchup with Everton. I mean, with Chelsea. Uh, for Tottenham, though, just yet another disappointment. So Tottenham kind of avoided a matchup against Chelsea twice because they lost to West Ham in the League Cup. And Chelsea versus Tottenham would have been that semifinal. And then in losing this match, they avoid meeting Chelsea in the next round. And I just think if you're Tottenham and you're losing to teams that are below you in the table, I feel like that's got to sting a bit. And now, like, at least last year you had a cup run, right? That was kind of like the highlight of the season, making it to the FA Cup final. Now it's just the rest of the league, and kind of we're asking like, what is Tottenham's direction? What are their ambitions? How do they take another step? Does the manager get another season? I think he probably will, unless Tottenham just crash out uh, to end the season. But
Yeah. I mean, yeah, to
but
be
yeah,
fair, they're still sixth in the table, so I think right now he is safe,
right,
their coach. But yeah, still a ways to go.
yeah, yeah. So I just thought that was a big disappointment to them. But good on Everton.
Hmm.
Yeah, the Everton result was surprising. I agree with everything Mark said. I think for Everton too, we talked about they were one of the teams that needed to be active in January. They were, and we'll talk about some of their other results coming up. But yeah, they've been playing really well and getting some important results for kind of getting themselves out of the relegation zone and out of the relegation battle. So that's good for them. The last time we recorded, I talked about Arsenal and how important it was for them to kind of shake what was a disappointing and dubious loss to Chelsea, right? Like because of the call and the penalty, they felt hard done by. And I talked about we'll see just kind of how they respond. They responded really well, like you mentioned, 5-0. It was an easy win. Lots of goals scored. I think they were up 2-3-0 in the first 15 minutes of the match. So they jumped on them fast, put them away, and just saw out the win. So that was good for Arsenal. And we'll talk about a lot of their other results. Their big result, because the other result I talked about that was going to be big was the City match that they had in the WSL. But yeah, I mean, I think that fourth round in the FA Cup went about as chalk as we thought it would. I think the only surprise was that 2-0 Everton win against Tottenham. But I think also we all mentioned like that was probably the match where if we were going to see a surprise, that would be it. That or the West Ham Liverpool one. But like Tom said, that 5-0 is a lot flattering to a Liverpool side that really didn't look like a 5-0 winning team, right? Like Arsenal's 5-0 was a lot different than Liverpool's 5-0. So,
Fair enough.
um, but yeah, I think that FA Cup was, or that round of the FA Cup was about what we thought it would be.
Yeah. And Brighton also kind of bounced back after their 3-0 loss to United, um, which was needed for them because they're kind of in a slump. It didn't necessarily last that long because of their next couple matches, but still kind of a boost to know them back in their scoring boots. But yeah, I do want to point out one thing about Arsenal. So they were up 4-0 at the half, and then they only scored one in the second half. Um, I actually couldn't watch this match fully. I saw the highlights, but was that because they just kind of sat back a little bit, or
Yeah,
did Bristol
they
City?
were on cruise
Yeah.
control at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it was just it was basically let's not have players hurt. Let's get ready for the City match we have coming up. Like we've
Yeah.
proven our point. You know, no need to keep going. Like there was a lot of chances that they had, and it could have been more than 5-0. Like they definitely had a
Mhm.
couple times where they missed, and you're just like, oh man, like it could have been worse. But they weren't necessarily in a, let's embarrass this team mode, right?
Yeah.
Like they knew that they had a very important league match coming up. They were at the start of what was a very tough run over the course of 10 days because it was Chelsea away. Then it was that round of the FA Cup, and then a couple days later they were going to see City, and then a few days after that it was going to be the
City.
League Cup match against City. So they very much knew like, okay, we have a lot of matches in a short time, but it wasn't anything of like, okay, they only scored one goal because Bristol was able to lock down
Mhm.
and make them look bad. Like no, it
Yeah.
wasn't that.
And it makes sense. And if you know
Yeah,
you've kind of secured the win and you don't need
yeah,
to rack
yeah.
up a goal difference, then yeah, makes sense. Okay, let us talk about that City Arsenal match. That was the first one of the weekend, last weekend, and boy, it was it was something. Uh, Arsenal ended up getting
Defending
the win.
optional.
Arsenal got the win 4-3, and it was very back and forth. Arsenal went out to 2-0, and then City um, equalized, and then it was 3-2, 3-3, and then finally 4-3. Uh, yeah, what you know what, Tom Bomb, let's start with you.
You know it's not going to be a good match when your defender, with literally within the first minute of the match, is dispossessed by the winger, and the winger takes the ball off of the defender, goes into the box, shoots, and scores. In the first minute of the match, y'all. And that is exactly what Marione Caldente did to her fellow countrywoman in Laia Alessandri. Just took the ball immediately from her. Like it was, and I know that like Greenwood makes up for a lot of Alessandri's mistakes, and it's obviously Greenwood's been hurt, and so she hasn't been there. And I don't think that like with her being the quote unquote stable one on the back line, the one who's been there the longest, like she is not acquitted herself as someone who has been on the back line for the longest in Alex Greenwood's absence, really. And I think I on Blue Sky called her a defensive liability. Um, yeah, bad pun and all of that. And then I think the second goal, like first of all, like
You can see the
Jill
moment
Roord,
Mark realized the pun. I love that. You could like, it didn't hit him all the way at first, and then he like got it.
that
I
was
saw that
very,
speed. I
very.
was like,
It was
yeah.
it was
That's how I
it
knew the
was
emotions were high.
it was yeah. It's a top level dad joke, basically. The second goal, I understand why you would want Jill Roord defending the back post on a set piece because she's tall. And I also understand that Jill Roord does not defend. Like that's just not that is
It's just
not in
not
her
her.
toolkit. That's just not that's not what she does. And so yes, if I'm Renee, I'm gonna put my tall center back at the back post and just have her dunk on her. Like I don't blame Kiera Keating at all. Like Kiera Keating did not have a great match, no, but I don't blame her for coming for that ball. Like, yeah, you were supposed to come for that. Um,
Yeah.
and
I,
like the traffic in front of you didn't allow you to get to it. And if there
I
would have
mean,
been traffic in front of Lotto Ruben Moy, maybe we wouldn't even be talking about this.
yeah, a lot of women might. She got up and then she got decked. Like she almost flipped over
Yes.
by Keating. But yeah, got the head on the ball and got it in. But that was you're so right. Like she, I mean, even if she was marked, it was not enough. Like she wasn't really, but no one was kind of tracking her.
Right. And then I think the third goal that Monum scored, like I don't know where Layla Wahhabi was. Like no one tracked Monum's run out of the midfield. Like and because she ran wide, like it was like Wahhabi was like, "Oh my God, you're there! You're there! Oh God!" And that was past Keating. The last, I think, the last goal was probably the most damning because, like, yes, that cross from Beth Mead was good, but like Kanak or Alessandria, I get something on there. Get something. Like I would
Slide,
rather it be.
run,
I
do
would rather
something.
it be an own. I would rather it be an own goal on you at that point than you just like. And of course it was. Of course it was Stina Blackstenius. Like she murders us every match that we play. That she plays, she scores big important matches or big important goals. Um, the defense just was not there in this match, and I think that was evident in all four goals that were scored, and it was just really rough to watch. And I personally am glad that after that match that I made the executive decision to just go back to bed and not watch any more footy that day.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, you didn't.
Oh,
You
Because that
watched
was
the
yeah.
other
also
one?
yes, that was the
Yes.
big Man City Arsenal hate week where they had the men who, we're not a men's podcast, but let's just say that Arsenal started that men's match the exact same way the women started their match. It was an Arsenal lead within the first minute and a half, and
So I
so
made
you
I
know,
made the correct choice. I made the correct
and the
choice.
women. Let's just say the women's side put up a lot more of a fight. That's for sure.
That is very true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Oh,
mean, Tom talks about Stina Blackstenius ruining Arsenal, and that's fair. But I would say, from an Arsenal fan perspective, that you also now have a player that seems to love scoring against Arsenal, in Mary Fowler, because she had a
mhm.
banger for her first goal that cut the deficit in that first half. She nailed her penalty that was awarded to them, which was a penalty. That was actually a good call. So like it wasn't like the Chelsea match where you're like, or no, wait, no,
Really?
that was
No,
the
no, no,
bad
no,
call
no,
No.
penalty,
This was
no,
the
no, no.
bad
right?
one,
The
yeah.
league
No,
match.
yeah,
The
this
league
was the
match.
bad one. See, so
Yeah,
many
Yeah.
because
penalties are called on Arsenal that I get them blurred up. This was the one that was actually bad
Was
because this was the one that was about 10 feet away from the box that
yes,
shouldn't have been a
outside the
penalty to
box.
begin with. That's right. Okay, see, we've had so many matches since the last recording. I forgot I was mad about this because it was yet another match where they were absolutely trying to screw over Arsenal with a bullshit penalty call because the first one against Lauren James was not a penalty. Like that was soft. That was as soft as you can get. Like there was zero. We touched the ball first. All of that. Then they ruled a penalty in a league that has no VAR, which I think now we need to have the conversation that we need VAR because this cannot happen. Like it was a foul and it should have been a free kick, but it was about 3 feet away from the box and it was ruled a penalty. That
What
should
I
never
didn't get,
happen in
it's on the
professional
side
soccer
of the
like that.
linesman too. Like the linesman
That
is
someone's got to see that she was clearly nowhere near the box. So that was a penalty. Mary Fowler put it away. Good for her. But yeah, obviously because of that, like I feel like Arsenal deserved the win because at that point, like I said, it was 2-1 at that point that Mary Fowler scored a goal. Or no, it was 3-1 because Monum had scored, but right before that, and then the penalty was called to make it 3-2. So Arsenal deserved the win, and I don't say that often. They definitely kind of dominated most of that match, but I would just say because we'll talk about the Leagues Cup match that, like I said, you have a player that loves scoring against Arsenal because Mary Fowler seems to do it every time we play you guys. Every time.
I
And I like Mary Fowler. Like I like her game. I respect her as a player. I love watching her play, but I would wish she would fucking stop. Like score against someone else, please. Hopefully you can score
uh
against City in the Champions League. Do that. Or against Chelsea in the Champions League. Do that. Please do that.
I I was also on the side that was not a penalty. Like
Well, yeah,
I didn't think
you
that was a
should be,
penalty.
Tom. She was like 10 feet away from the
I
box. Like
know,
There's
I
a
know.
this
question.
isn't a debate, Tom. This is how soccer works. These are rules. Yes.
I said in the moment, I don't love it. I'll take it, but I don't love it.
Yeah,
Um,
you always take it as a fan. I get that. I'm not gonna be mad at
uh,
you for that.
but that stated, I did think that Aba Fujino probably played her best match um, as in, as a City
She
player in that match. In like and every match subsequent, she's gotten better, which is encouraging to see. Like a young player actually like doing the linear growth thing. But like she was the one that drew the quote unquote penalty. She was the one who had the assist on Mary Fowler's first goal. So she did play very, very well in this match. Actually, I don't. Most of the attacking players for City, I thought did play really well.
They played excellent. No, your attack like very much had me nervous. And again, like you mentioned Fujino, like that was a case in point. We talked about the last pod where I mentioned like this is why they brought in someone like Jenna Niswanger, right? People are like, why would you bring in this defender? And I said because they're gonna need depth at that wing position, at that wing back position, the way that they play, the way that Renee likes to play. And this is why, because you're gonna have right backs and left backs that not only attack but then have to deal with defending players like Fujino, players like Carolyn, players like that can get width on the pitch and get outside with speed and have the ability to put in like her crosses were making me real nervous because she was putting in some balls that like City could have probably had another couple of goals if players were there. Like her crosses were just pinpoint and just gorgeous. And I never really want to see her or Fowler again because like that combination is deadly. It was tough to watch the Arsenal defend like that, but like I said, we did enough for the win, and that's all that matters. And I talked about it before. This was going to be a big win because now you look at the table, and we're sitting in that very important third place, and we now have a little bit of breathing room over City with the 2 points between us after this win. So that's important.
Yeah, I think we had said after our loss to Chelsea, like title hopes are kind of gone, but that
Pretty
Champions
much.
League spot is still very much in the running between basically it's two spots for three teams between United, Arsenal, and City. And so this was a much needed win to kind of maintain that
And to
third
keep their
spot.
momentum going. Like I think for Renee, like I talked about, this was a very critical stretch, and this is, I don't think it's been talked about enough. This has been a tough stretch for Arsenal in terms of opponents, right? Like this hasn't been kind of a run of easy schedule. It's been a tough stretch, and Renee's handled it really well to kind of deal with that schedule congestion and then tough opponents, and then dealing with bad calls like in these very important matches against the other two best teams in the league, and you're trying to make a great first impression, and you get a real questionable call against Chelsea that gives them the win in a close match, and then you get this really egregious call against City in a match where you're cruising, and that gives them an opportunity to bring it within another goal, and you're just like, what do I have to do? But she's handled it really well. They've gotten really good results. We'll talk about some of their other results. I am disappointed in the League Cup loss, but if you would have asked me which one I would want Arsenal to beat City in, it would be the league's match in the WSL, because that to me is far more important than the Subway footlong cookies on the side cup. Like I respect that cup. Like there's some competitions that I truly do not care about, and that's one of them. FA Cup I'll care about. Champions League is the focus. WSL is the focus. I think Arsenal kind of prioritized that well. So
I think from a City perspective, this match is just super damning. Like you fall out of the top three. You're sitting, I believe it's 3 points behind everyone else. 2 points behind Arsenal.
You're 2 points behind us, but you're 5 behind United now.
5 behind United at this point. You don't have any more makeup games against Arsenal at this point. Arsenal has already played Chelsea twice. Yes, you do get another match against United. And United still has to play Chelsea twice, yes?
Well, they have to play us as well in the final match of the season.
Oh, yeah.
Is United, so.
So, yeah, it's not looking good to qualify for Champions League at this point. So,
on top of, again, we'll talk about that, on top of a tough Champions League draw in this year's Champions League.
Yeah.
I mean, Thom Bomb, you talked about all of Arsenal's goals and City's mistakes on that, but I mean, Arsenal had a couple mistakes as well that gave City like an opportunity to come in or come back into it. Like right at the beginning of the second half, Caldente, honestly, I don't even know what she was thinking, trying to pass it back and gave it directly to Mitama, who was already like halfway into the box. And of course, when you give it to her right there, she's gonna score.
She passed. She set up. She gave a perfect assist to Mitama. Is what she did. Like, let's say what it is. She gave
Yeah, I think
Mitama a great assist, which is
yeah.
weird because she never played with Mitama before. So I
I
don't
was
know
gonna
where
say,
that.
like, did she forgot Mitama didn't play on her team, but she'd never even played with her. So.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, had it been like Leia or someone, or maybe like Stina, like you'd be like, okay, there was like a kind of like a muscle memory thing
Momentary
going
lapse,
on.
yeah.
You see Viv up here, like, okay, give it to her, but no, none of that. Just bad moment from Caldente. But you know, it happens. I can laugh about it now because we won. You know, it's okay.
Right. And then Stina had a chance to score before she actually got the winning goal, but she like whiffed or like I don't know, somehow made it too wide and she had like an open goal once Kiara Keating came out and missed that. So there's still like obviously happy about the win, but there's still little things where like they can clean up and there's always going to be some mistakes in
Well,
a match, but
you saw that there
you
were
know,
things that they can clean up because they played City again, which you know, again we'll talk about later.
of
But
course, yeah.
When I saw that Steeda miss, I was like, see, this is why you don't start.
this.
Like she's actually really talented,
And then she
right?
scored, and she's like, "See, this is why I come off the bench against these
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
because I'll do this shit at the end. Don't worry about it."
She's like, that was
Actually,
just a teaser.
I wanted to ask you guys about Mariona Caldente. So I remember like over the summer, it seemed like there was a little bit of mixed reaction to her signing. You know, it didn't seem like there were maybe some WSL or maybe Arsenal fans who weren't quite convinced by her. I mean, to me, like when I saw the numbers that she put up at Barca, I thought, oh, okay, like that's obviously you're getting a good player there. But what has been your impression so far of her this season? Has she made the impact that you were hoping she would?
I think for me, like when she first came in, yes, there was a sense of like disrespectfully from a lot of people, but there was a sense of like Arsenal got the worst Barcelona player that they could from that Champions League winning team, right? Like there was a sense that like, oh my God, you took Mariona, like who is she? Who really cares? We don't really know her. While you had Barca fans were like, look, you have a great player, like do not mess this up. For me, it was, you know, I watch enough women's soccer to know what Caldente can bring. So to me, I was always excited about having her. My biggest worry, which kind of proved true, was just having her there under Jonas because I just didn't trust Jonas at all. And so when she first arrived, it was under Jonas, and so I was very much like, this isn't gonna really matter how good she is. He's just gonna ruin another player. Like this isn't gonna work out well. And you kind of saw that because it took her a little bit to get going. She kind of was missing a lot of early chances, was missing a lot of clear chances. It kind of felt like, okay, here we go again. You know, we kind of maybe we did pick the wrong one. But much like the rest of the team, when Jonas left, I think I've said this so many times. You have to look at Arsenal kind of in two parts this season, where you have to look at them with Jonas at the start of the season and after Jonas, kind of after that Chelsea match and the Bayern blow up and all of that. And I think once Renee came in and once Renee established a way of playing tactically, kind of reestablishing responsibilities for players, I think then you saw Mariona really start to get comfortable with her teammates, get comfortable with playing at Arsenal. And I think over the last month and a half, especially, Mariona's really settled into the point where I look at her and I'm like, I'm really glad we have her. I still think Arsenal need more in attack, but that's not because Mariona is lacking. That's just because Arsenal need more in attack. Like they just, you're in a league where Chelsea have Lauren James and Kat Macario and all of these players, and then you have City with Bunny Shaw and now Viv Miedema, and you lost to Viv Miedema, so it's like as Arsenal as a team, they just need a little bit more potency, I think, in attack. But I love what I've seen from Mariona the last month and a half, and especially that City match. Like she was all over it, all over the mistakes that they were making. She made her own mistake, yes, we talked about it, but I think just as a whole, she's been a really fun player to watch, and hopefully she can help us get other Barcelona players in the future. That would be the
Yeah,
dream,
true. And I
or just
think,
Spanish players in general.
yeah. I also think she has kind of solidified herself as our penalty taker. And you know, she's taken the last few. She's made all of them, I think. I don't think she's missed one yet, as far as
She hasn't missed any
I'm
against
aware.
City.
I think she missed one. I think she missed one. I think there was one
Okay.
she missed. I feel like there's been one miss from her.
But yeah, I think it's nice. It typically it was like Kim I feel like they mixed it up, but like Kim Little, Russo would take a couple, maybe McCabe. So I feel like if we have like one kind of secure, good penalty taker, that also is a plus. Also, I like her walk up because it literally is just a walk up. She'll take like 3 steps and then kick the ball, but just walk, like no hop,
Yeah, she
skip,
doesn't worry
jump,
about it. She's
run.
just like,
Like
boom,
yeah, she's just like, all right, boom.
it's in or it's
But
not.
yeah,
Boom, it is what it is.
yeah. But yeah, overall, I agree with what Treb said. I was excited about her coming, and I think she now has found her place and is like fitting in a bit better and making her mark. And
I think Arsenal fans accept
yeah,
her a lot more too now. Because, like I said, at first
yeah.
it was just like, who is this? You know, this isn't
Well,
Bonmati.
not
Like,
to
who do
like
we have?
stir the rumor pot, but I mean, people were like, okay, if she's like with Leah Valti, like they were like, oh, that's the only reason she came, you know,
Yeah.
like that it
If
was
that is the
kind of
reason she came, I'm glad then because, like, you know, she's been really good for the team. Like, I think,
yeah,
like I said, I think Arsenal coming into the season needed a lot of. Well, they needed a new manager and they needed a lot of help in attack, and they have a new manager now, and we see the difference that it makes. And I think with just how Renee plays, if they can just get one, maybe two more players in attack on a permanent basis, we'll talk about the loan move that they made, but on a permanent basis, I think this is a team going into 2025, depending on how their summer transfer looks, that can very well look like an Arsenal team ready to regain their top spot. So, because again, we look at the rosters other teams are putting together and we look at the roster Arsenal have, and we're still standing toe to toe with these teams. And we're still, you know, a bad decision and a goal away from beating Chelsea. We've handled City this year, despite their new moves. Like, so if Arsenal can just get a little bit more potency and a little bit more star power in the summer, this could be a team ready for a big 2025.
okay. We have so many more matches to talk about.
Yeah,
So we
let's
get
not
to
talk about the
those.
big clubs all the time. People love that we don't always talk about the big clubs, and like we spent 30 minutes on Arsenal and City. So like, let's, you know,
That was a pretty monumental game, to be fair. But yes, I
it
agree.
was,
Yes,
it was.
okay.
There's a lot at stake because we are talking about Champions League spots too. So like,
Right.
we're at that point
Yeah.
of the season where these
You,
matter. But yeah,
you have to, yeah, you had to give it the due it deserved.
Yes.
speaking of
Yeah.
do they deserve, Everton.
Everton again pulled out another win, this time against Leicester, but Everton scored 4. They won 4-1 and just kept on rolling after their win against Tottenham in the FA Cup. So big win for them. This like breaks them a bit more out of the relegation battle, and Leicester is, they were one of the teams that is also in this relegation battle, and so not a good loss for them. Like we were saying, these matches where they're playing against the teams around them are really, really going to make the difference. And so big 3 points for Everton. Sad loss for Leicester.
I think outside of the Arsenal City match, this match had my favorite goals. Had some of my favorite goals from that weekend. So Gago, who I mentioned before, scored a brace. She scored within 5 minutes. Cross came in, and she was being a being a target woman basically. Um, the second goal too, I really liked from Everton because so essentially they played a long ball up to Gago. She kind of runs the channel, holds up the ball, plays it to Tony Payne, who then fired in a little cross and resulted in a goal. I thought it was a really smart build up. I thought Tony Payne, in addition to Gago, had an excellent game, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that sort of partnership now for the rest of the season for Everton. I see Hayashi scored a banger. She scored from like 30 yards out. I think the goalkeeper was a little bit unsighted, but it was still an excellent goal. And yeah, just a well-deserved performance from Everton. And like, if you're trying to separate yourself from like the relegation fodder, I feel like this is the way to do it. Like a nice emphatic win. So yeah, I mean, like Everton certainly seem like they're on the up. At least in the league.
Tony Payne played a fantastic match in this match. Just like her willingness to run so that Gago got space behind her. Her hold up play. She had 2 different assists, so she got on the score sheet. Yes, Gago's always going to be quote unquote ranked higher on FOTMOB because she scored 2 goals. But to me, if you asked me to pick a player of the match, I would have picked Tony Payne.
Nice. Yeah, and like we said, this bumps Everton up. So they're currently 8th in the table now, 13 points off the 13 matches. And Leicester City is down in 11th with only 9 points, and only 3 points away from Crystal Palace, who's in that last spot. So big win for Everton. I think we've mentioned like Gago especially, plus a couple of the other transfers that they got, the other players they got during the January window were big, and they definitely have already been making a difference and pulling them up and out. I think, ever since Everton's like change in ownership, things have been looking up. They seem to really be caring, investing more. Obviously, they've got these new players, and so yeah, it's looking good for Everton. I'm actually curious to listen back to a couple of our first episodes when we didn't have too much hope for Everton, and I think so, a
When
couple
we
of us
buried
at
them.
least.
I thought they were dead in the water. Yeah, no, I mean, well, we
Yeah.
talked about it, right? We said unless they change ownership and unless things change,
Yeah.
like they're the relegation team because they were dead
Yeah.
in the water and they played like it. Like, let's not act like we were wrong
Oh no, we
because
were
we were
fine.
right.
Yeah.
We were 100% right. We were 100% right because you're right. Like, they got the new ownership. The new ownership came in and said very specifically, I mind you, because we talked about it when the new ownership came in. They came in and said our focus is to save both teams from the current relegation zone they're in. So make sure that the men's side have enough to stay out of that relegation battle, and then we're going to focus on the women's side and make sure they have enough to stay out of their relegation battle, and then we're going to come back next season and try to get this club back to the prominence that it had before. And they're doing that. Like, they are doing that. And I think especially on the women's side, it's going to be really fun to see them going forward, because if they were able to pull off this January on kind of short notice like this, it's going to be interesting to see how this ownership handles a whole summer to be able to lure players away from potentially a place like United, right? Because if United is still going to have the same stance that it has now and not really support their women's side, I can absolutely see Everton coming to some of those players and being like, hey, we're doing things differently now. We have money now. Like, we can pay you a good wage. Come over here. And again, same with Liverpool. If they don't get it together, they could risk losing some of their players. So it'll be interesting.
That's so
But yeah,
true.
congratulations to Everton, man. I'm really happy for them.
Yeah, the Merseyside area could get a little switch up. But speaking of Liverpool, they played West Ham again. They beat West Ham again, this time 1-0, courtesy of another Leanne Kiernan goal, who scored against her
Such
former
a great
club.
goal, too.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, Matt Beard was also obviously praising her afterwards. And he said, once Leanne gets her goal, then she scores goals. It's as simple as that. She's enjoying her football again. It was great movement as well, the way she ghosted in. But yeah, good way to describe
Yeah,
it.
if you watch that goal, that was excellent passing and just getting right behind the defenders with ease. Like, in one step, she went from, kind of being defended by 2 players to right there on the ball. Easy touch. The touch was beautiful. Just a little flick on right past the keeper. Really unfortunate from a West Ham point of view, because for the
I
rest of
thought,
the match, after that match, and like leading up to that goal, they had pretty much had Liverpool right where they wanted them.
yes, like
So
that.
so it was it was another, like, Tom can get into it, but it was another case where, like, Liverpool kind of, I don't want to say lucky because that was such a great goal. Like, it was beautiful. Like, it was just beautiful vision, passing, finishing, but it was one moment of brilliance that they were able to convert in a match where they only had one moment of brilliance. So
Yes,
I think West
yes.
Ham kind of ended that match feeling like they let one go, but yeah.
I think what's so disheartening is the fact that like West Ham, like if you look at West Ham's shot chart, yes, they only took 9 shots, but 7 of them were on target. Or actually were off target. So they weren't very effective. And just to Treb's point, the teams seemed way more evenly matched than they did in the FA Cup match that they played. It just seemed that Liverpool had a player that could create a moment of brilliance, and West Ham didn't. And that's not to say that Viviane Asai didn't try, because I believe that she hit the woodwork and was called off sides on a goal that I was pretty sure was going to stand. But and they also led in touches in the opposition box. So like they were dancing all around Liverpool, getting what they wanted for the most part, getting to their spots. They just weren't clinical. So I'm sure that Rianne Skinner will feel hard done by in that particular match. But I felt like Liverpool needed this. I think we talked about it before we got on. Liverpool has only scored 13 goals in the season, or in the league season, which is only 2 more than Crystal Palace, who's at the bottom of the table. That's not generally where you want to be, especially a team like Liverpool.
Yeah.
All right. Brighton versus Crystal Palace ended in a 1-1 draw. I feel like, I mean, good point for both of them, but Crystal Palace, you can tell they are kind of improving a little bit again. Brighton, they had a big win in the FA Cup round, but went down a bit. Like they're still, it's unclear where they fall right now. But you know, like we said, Crystal Palace is still currently 12th in the table. They need the points, so big 1 point for them. But did it feel like dropped points, or was this a good draw for them?
I mean, I think any point at this point for Palace is good. They need them. I think this season, I mean, they still have a chance, right? Like they still have a lot of matches against teams in the relegation zone around them left. Like they have the reverse to a lot of those first matches, but they they really needed an attacking option, I think, in January, and they didn't get it. They were able to solidify their defense and get options defensively, but like their last couple results have shown, it doesn't really matter if you can't score. Like they can't finish goals. They're able to get shots off. They were able to get a fair amount of shots off in this match. A couple of them were on target, but they just do not have that player that you can look to, kind of like I mean, yeah, like kind of like Liverpool had, right? Like they had a player who can create in a moment of brilliance when they needed it. Like they have a player who can do that. Crystal Palace don't have that player. I think Alana Blanchard is as close as they have to that player, but I don't think that that's really the role that she needs to be playing to really succeed as a player. So it's a good point for Palace, but I think a lot of what they've dealt with this season has been feeling disappointed with points they've let go. Uh, this was a team that I felt could do what hasn't been done yet, which is have a team be promoted to the WSL and then stay there and not just get re-relegated that very next season. And they still have a chance to do that, but it's not looking great with kind of how they played. They've improved a little bit lately, but they haven't been enough. Like I said, they need a little bit more up front, I think, to get some of these results in this league. And they just aren't getting it. But this was a good point. They had most of the match though with or a player advantage, with Brighton receiving a red card early in the second half. So it's one of those things again where it's like you had all that time to find a couple of goals, and it took you until the 88th minute to get the equalizer. So good point for them, but unless they really really turn it around, I think it's looking like the team we won't be seeing back next season.
Yeah. But then on Brighton's end, they're still in a safe spot. They're still fifth in the table.
Oh, they're good. Yeah, yeah.
They're good, but at one point in the season we were like, oh, they could be competing for those Champion League spots, and then they really haven't scored many points in the last several games. And so right now they're 18 points off 13 matches, but only having, I think, 2 points in the last 5 matches or something like that. So they definitely are on kind of a downhill part of their season. I think it's a bit late to, those Champions League spot that they could have been fighting
Yeah, I think
for
that's
is
done.
no
I think
longer in
yeah,
the
I think that's
picture.
done.
Yeah. And now
There's
it's just
7 back
about
from
kind
City
of
who are in 4th, so it's like you're not catching
right. You're not going to
that
catch
group.
them, which is a little unfortunate for them, but it's also, like first season with this coach, they had some like a fairly promising first half of the season, and now it's about getting back on that trend and, kind of re-gearing up for next season, because like they had won their FA Cup fourth round match, but we'll get to it. But they ended up losing the fifth round match, so they're out of that one as well. So yeah, it's kind of now maintain your spot and then get reset for the following season.
Yep.
All right, then we had Aston Villa versus Chelsea. Chelsea got the 1-0 win over Villa.
Man, thought we had
This
one.
was
Thought we
their
had one.
chance. This
Thought
was
we
the
had the
chance.
points drop. Yeah.
But no, 82nd minute, there was an own goal, unfortunately, comes to Chelsea's rescue.
Yeah, it would have been a Hamano goal if the defender didn't make an intervention. But yeah, that moment was basically created by Myra Ramirez, who came off the bench in this match. And so this was actually an experimental lineup overall. Like the front four was Beaver Jones, Macario, Guru Wrighton, and Lauren James. Which like Guru Wrighton, since the winter break, has actually been coming off the bench, and she got hooked at halftime of this match, and I think it was deserved because she wasn't doing anything. Macario getting another start, good to see. I think we're starting to see the old Macario again. I think that her getting back up to full speed is probably as important as like any other Chelsea player coming back from injury, for this, especially for this the stretch going to end the season. But yeah, I mean they didn't do much for 80 minutes, 75 minutes, I thought Aston Villa really made it difficult for them. Aston Villa countered them well a couple of times. There was a Hannah Hampton mistake that nearly turned into a goal. There was, I believe her name is Hansen. Yeah, Kirsty Hansen ripped a shot from 30 yards that cannoned off the post or the crossbar. And I think Hampton actually got a fingertip to it. So I mean, like, and it's funny too because Villa played Chelsea tough in the first match as well.
That's what I was about to say. Like, yeah, this was the second time Villa played Chelsea to a 1-0 loss.
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
second time they probably felt like they should have came away with at least a draw. So
yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, I mentioned Myra Ramirez came off the bench. That was in the 56th minute. She came off the bench with Sirenushkin. Yeah, and I think that definitely had made a big impact on the match as well. Also, we saw Kira Walsh come in the 78th minute, making her first appearance for Chelsea. We'll talk more about her transfer, but yeah, I mean it's Myra. Like I think that I feel like she has the most like big game or most impactful goals for Chelsea this season. Like I don't think there's any one player numbers wise that's necessarily lighting the world on fire, but I think in terms of like a player that I want starting in a big game, I think Myra Ramirez is near or at the top of that list. So and she proves why again. She tried to the ball was played in to her on the sideline. Defender tried to dive in and just missed, and then Ramirez was just off. She was never getting caught. and like I mentioned, she was going to play the lacrosse to Amano, who, and shout out credit to Amano as well for her work rate. I think she's starting to impact matches as well. I felt like she was doing that earlier this season, kind of tailed off a little bit. So, but yeah, it's good to see these contributions from all these different players. It seems like Chelsea have like 3 or 4 number 10s right now that could potentially start. So, but yeah, I will say though, I definitely did not think we deserved this win. Like by the end of it, I was just watching the ball trickle into the goal, I was just chuckling. Like, of course. But yeah, overall got 3 points, and that's really the most important thing.
Is there anything that a team like United, who still has to play Chelsea, obviously City, who we'll get into how many times we have to play Chelsea in the month of March, can take away from Aston Villa's performance that maybe they can replicate to make things messy for Chelsea? Or is that just kind of a basically a 2-game, a small 2-game sample size, and sometimes in sports you just come up against teams that are not as talented as you, that just kind of have your number and know how to hold you to not your highest ceiling?
I thought Villa countered well. I would actually probably do to Chelsea what Chelsea tries to do to other teams, is playing that mid block and sort of taking away spaces, but not giving up too much, like making it uncomfortable in the midfield.
That press,
And then,
you just gotta press them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like obviously you have to be smart about the press, right? Like you wouldn't do an all-out press necessarily unless you like Barcelona or something like that. But yeah, I just thought like Aston Villa won the ball back in good areas and countered really well. I also think that Chelsea are still getting used to playing in big stadiums. This was a point that so I listen to London is Blue podcast, sometimes the Chelsea podcast, and they kind of made that point after the win over City at Stamford Bridge, that like they haven't quite made Stamford Bridge home yet. And the host on that show, was saying that he felt like the team was still getting used to playing in the bigger arenas, and so they struggled at Leicester, which was at the King Power Stadium. And then they kind of had the struggles at Aston Villa, which is at I forget the name of their ground.
Villa Park.
Villa Park, yeah, which is at Villa Park. And so maybe it's that as well. Like if you can get Chelsea on a bigger playing field, and like set up in a certain way, maybe we can be had. I mean, like Chelsea's record at the Emirates, for example, is
I was
bad.
gonna say, yeah, you guys won this year. What, first time in 9 years?
First
at the
time ever.
Emirates?
That was the first
Oh, it was
win
the
at the
first time
Emirates.
ever, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like,
So
and that took what? Again, a Jonas masterclass of disasters handing you goals. So like, yeah,
and they
there might
weren't.
be something to that. There might be
Yeah,
something
Yeah.
to
that's
that.
a really interesting point, because even
Yeah.
the
That
Chelsea
is.
Arsenal, the reverse fixture at Stamford Bridge, like
Well, again, the
Arsenal,
penalty was the difference. We
exactly,
had them where we wanted
like
them.
Arsenal had them, and so that's an interesting
Yeah,
point.
it's one
So
of those like, oh,
basically,
what's
the takeaway is for every team to play Chelsea women in their men's stadium immediately. And
Well, I think it's not
So-
even just that. I think you also have to be a team that's used to it yourself, right? Because again, we're talking about Arsenal, who give them hell in these big stadiums, but Arsenal, fortunately for us, unfortunately for women's soccer as a whole, like we're used to playing at the Emirates in front of 40, 50, 60,000 people. Like we can do that. And so I think, that's why I think it was a couple of weeks ago where I asked, where City were getting ready to play United, where I asked Tom about how City play at the Etihad, because like
yeah.
there is something to these teams playing on these big stages kind of for the first time in their club history. And as good as City were, like we saw how tough it was for them even at home against a team like United on a big stage. So yeah, there could very well be something to that. That's really interesting from them. I'm gonna
That
have
is
to
a very
like
interesting
pay,
point.
yeah, that's a really interesting point for sure.
Because the one I think about is versus Barcelona, right, in the semifinal
Mhm.
last season, where like Chelsea had their chances, but the thing that stood out to me was they never really had control of the match. And so
Yeah.
I think these bigger stages, bigger playing fields, I think it's something to
Interesting.
this they're still getting used to.
I wonder, like, in tennis, a lot of tennis players say that it's harder to play in the much bigger stadiums,
Hmm.
with bigger seats because the atmosphere is so big and the stadium itself is so big that the court seems smaller. And I wonder if, like, I know it's different for soccer, but if, like, there's just that feeling of you are in a smaller place, so like maybe you can't make your shots as well or something. Like the field seems smaller, the field seems different. Just
Well,
something about a bigger, yeah,
and
atmosphere.
soccer fields actually vary in size. Like, so
They
there's a
do.
That's true.
range
Yeah.
that you're allowed to. And so Stamford Bridge, like on the men's side, Stamford Bridge is a smaller playing field, but Stamford Bridge is probably bigger than Kings Meadow, right?
Mm.
So
Yes.
I would
Yes.
imagine. So, it's things like that. Emirates, I would imagine, is bigger than Stamford Bridge, even, right? So,
Oh yeah.
um, it's I'm sure that's all of that. I think
Yeah.
like
And
sight lines
Tottenham's
even
new
play a
stadium
part.
now is like huge. So
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. So.
yeah,
Interesting.
okay, that's interesting. It could also be, I wonder if it's also like a mentality, right? Like Chelsea kind of are in that mode mentally where they're like, we are the big fish in this pond. And then it's like you get them on a stage like the Emirates, 60,000 people, or on a stage like Barcelona, then it's like, oh shit, we're not,
Mm.
we're not a huge fish. We're like we kind of think we are, you know what I mean? Then it's like kind of almost like you're humbling them mentally, where it's just like, okay, we are
Yeah.
human, we are gettable, we can be beat. You kind of
Yeah.
lose that mental edge, I wonder. So
Mm.
Mm. Okay, and then the last match of match day 13 weekend was Tottenham versus Man United. United got the 1-0 win from uh, a goal by Elizabeth Turland in the first few minutes. It was, I think, in the 6th minute, off a cross by Jade Riviere. And honestly, that was like the highlight of the match. After that, there was not much to go off of.
that was
It
the
was
show.
kind of one to, yeah, kind of one to forget. But um, yeah, honestly don't have too much more to say about this one. It was just, yeah, first
Let's
first
just laugh
bit
at
was
Tottenham
fine.
continuing to lose. Let's just do that.
I will
I mean, we could
say
just do that.
I was impressed. Well, I guess I noted how United pressed. Like they actually pressed quite a bit more than was expecting or used to them seeing. And yeah, I would say they were definitely the better team. Um, and also like I felt like this match was like we talked about United's run in, right? They play the big three to end the season. And so I think it's like they just have to if they can go 100%, like or as close to as possible, just racking up as many points as they can. And so I thought this was one of the tougher matches that they have left before that stretch. And for them to get all 3 points there, they understood the assignment.
I think that I think their defense is obviously we rate Fallon very highly. She's like, but they've still conceded the fewest amount of goals of any WSL side in the league. Um, and it's not just Fallon. Letitia has been playing like
Shit, oh my
lights
god,
out.
I love her so
Yeah.
much. Yeah, she's
Um,
such a good defender.
Millie Turner has been playing really well as well. But I think to me, the difference in this squad is that like they have two fullbacks that can and will get up and down both sides of the pitch. And like the fact that if they don't like one of their winger matchups on one side, they can be like, okay, we're going to hold Gabby George back, but we're going to let Jade Riviere get forward, which is basically what happened on the first goal. Or vice versa. Like, if they can have Gabby George go up and have Jade Riviere defend more. So I think that gives Skinner a lot of tactical flexibility. But their defense has to be the story of United this season.
Yep.
Yep. That and them winning in spite of ownership. I mean, I feel like all season I've been waiting for the shoe to drop, right? Like waiting for United to kind of crumble under what appears to be a very toxic environment over there, especially for the women's side, right? Like it just feels like a very terrible environment to be in if you're a United player. And they just come out every match and do enough to win. And like Thom said, they're playing incredibly well defensively, and they're doing just enough in the offense to come away with these points and to rack up 3 points. And they need it because, yeah, they finish with Chelsea, City, Arsenal right at the end. And if they want to keep that Champions League spot in their pocket, they're gonna have to basically win out between now and then, between that first kind of Chelsea match before that 3-match run, because I don't think they're gonna come away with 9 points in those 3 matches, right? Like I think at best 4, right? You're hoping for 4. I think at best they could probably get one of us, whether it's City or Arsenal, in terms of getting all 3 points, and then a draw against one of the other 2. So I think you're looking at 4 points best in those 3 matches. So I think they're gonna have to win out if they want to secure that Champions League spot. Because while I don't see City kind of catching them, City are still there, right? Like City are 5 points back. They only need to run themselves to kind of close that gap. But I think what really benefits United is the fact that all 3 of us, City, Chelsea, Arsenal, still have Champions League going on. And so, and I think especially for Arsenal and Chelsea, that competition right now, and especially for Chelsea, but that competition right now is almost like team sole focus. Like they want to get to the final of that Champions League and make sure they are the WSL team that has a chance to lift that trophy. And I think that really helps United, because with the top teams focusing on that, it does provide avenues for them to slip up, right? And so again, you're talking about a City team that we've seen kind of struggle in the league. We saw Chelsea narrowly escape Villa. We know Arsenal are almost always gettable. So it's just like I'm really surprised with how well United have done despite the adversity, and I think that's really impressive. And I think that they very much, I mean, I can see them finishing in that top 3. It'll be interesting these next few weeks. But yeah, I mean, the fact that they're still in this battle is really impressive to me.
Second team to 30 points behind Chelsea.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they're there. Like they're making me nervous as an Arsenal fan. They really are making me nervous. Like I'm not gonna lie.
Like
they
are
make
probably
me
the team that
nervous.
make me the most nervous. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because like I said, because they don't have to worry about Champions League. They're kind of in that spot where they don't have to worry about nothing but securing next year's Champions League, and that's not a fun prospect when you have all these other tournaments you're balancing, and like you're an Arsenal team that, you know, again, we talk about how well they've done since leaving Jonas, but they're still a team that are getting used to a new manager and a new style of play, and you just never know in that situation. So,
well, I mean, not only that, like they're out of Champions League, they're out of the Leagues Cup at this point, and their FA Cup draw has been super friendly to them.
Yeah,
like
they are
friendly.
Cruising.
So,
they're cruising.
Yeah.
Yeah, and their only loss this season has been to Chelsea, that 1-0 loss. So, you know, they only have 1 loss. They've conceded the fewest number of goals. Like Treb said, like they haven't slipped up yet, really, even though we expected
You're
them
waiting
to
for
slip
it.
up
Yeah.
at some point, but yeah.
Right.
And they haven't, which is frightening, actually. So,
I mean, you look at their quarterfinal FA Cup draw. I just pulled it up. They're the only WSL team playing a non-WSL team. You know, like granted, Chelsea have Palace, and you can say what you want, but like, you know, Chelsea have Palace, City have Villa, and Arsenal have Liverpool, and like these are all WSL teams that are playing each other. And then you have Man United, who have Sunderland.
Right.
Like that's super favorable. Like they if ever there was a, like, this is what, and this is like why I get so mad at the United ownership and why I talk shit about them so much, because you have a woman, like, you're so obsessed with trying to fix your shit ass men's side that is showing zero life and zero promise and zero passion and zero ability to do anything in the Premier League. And you're disregarding a women's team right now that is very literally on the doorstep of the biggest competition in Europe. Like, they are fighting for a Champions League spot. And if you value the women's game even a little bit, you would have spent January kind of reaffirming that squad and bolstering that squad and being like, fuck it, let's make a run at this title. Like, we don't know if Chelsea are going to slip up at any time with the Champions League focus. Like, they are in a position where they could have taken advantage of where they're at this year so much more than they have. And the fact that they are still second is surprising to me. And that's why I get so passionate about it, because I think United could be even better off this year had they had an ownership that gave a shit about them. So kudos to the women over there. Yeah, no, they have and it can get better. Like, they have a really good team, and it can be better. And like, they just scare me, man. They are a scary proposition.
Yeah, people, once Russo left, and actually a lot of players left United, and people are like, oh, what's going to happen? What are they going to look like? What's going to happen? But I think the players who are there, the ones that they've gotten, it fits properly. Like, they are a puzzle that fits all well together. And so there's so much potential still. And like, they've obviously done so well so far, that it is frustrating that their ownership doesn't care. And like, we were talking about this before we recorded, but they have their mission 1 target for the women and mission 21 for the men, in reference to what number league title it would be. But first of all, it's funny that they call it these missions, because basically it's just like, our mission is to win the league, and that's every single team's mission.
Everyone's mission is to win the league. Yeah, like, what the fuck are you doing, bro?
But there was backlash because of, what the ownership says. Was it Ratcliffe and Ineos and whoever on ownership side talking about how we don't care about the women. But then there was also another, I think it was on what was it called? Talk Sport. Another.
Alan Brazil.
Yeah. Show. But basically Alan Brazil was like, oh, the people around the world are not bothered about whether the women's team win the league. And like, basically insinuating that everyone only cares about the men's side. They don't care about the women's side.
Which doesn't surprise me. I mean, women's sports in general is always disrespected. So I think
it is always, but
I think that's
why that Nike commercial was the best commercial of the Super Bowl.
It's so dumb. Like, you have a team that is winning. It's like, I don't know. I just feel like, especially when you talk about soccer, right? Like, you have clubs. I think it would be way better if you just looked at it the way that City are starting to look at it, the way that Arsenal have looked at it the last decade, the way that Chelsea are starting to look at it, which is, we are a club. Like, this is Chelsea Football Club. This is Arsenal Football Club. This is Manchester. Like, you should look at it as like, we need to make sure the men's side, the women's side, the youth side, the tiddlywink side, like, we need to make sure everything we do is to the standard that we as a club, whatever club you are, have. And I think that, like, United is focusing on a men's team that is 12 points out of 4th place right now in a Premier League that is, probably as competitive as it's ever been in terms of, where teams are, and City not running away with things. Like, they are pretty much dead in the water, especially with, like I said, the lack of passion that they have and the way that they played. And then meanwhile, you have a women's side who can very literally make a run at the WSL title if Chelsea slip up and if they just had a little bit stronger squad. And so to just ignore that. And then we talk about Ineos and Ratcliffe, and there was news today that they are considering more redundancies. So, like, laying off more people in the future. Yeah. So that club is like I said, it is a toxic, dire situation. So the fact that the women's team is sitting in second and continuing to get these results is impressive beyond measure, in my opinion. Like, congratulations to them, no matter how this season ends, because I have so much respect for that women's side and what they've done in spite of the environment that they are in. And I've for the fans there, I hope it's better.
I will say it again, because you can't say it enough times. The women don't even have their own training facilities this season. The men took over, and the women have temporary, whatever they call, portable training, whatever, because the men's are getting renovated and they get priority. And so it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
They have big 2021 Washington Spirit energy. Like, I can't like, yes. They're running, like, it's almost like they're running purely on spite, and I can't explain it any way other than that.
honestly, and good for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things that maybe it's like a catch-22, you know, where they're doing so well in spite of everything. But if they do so well, then they'll be like, oh, they don't need more resources. They've already done so well. Like it could go either that way, or it could go the way of, oh, they've done so well, they should continue. We need to maintain this, so then invest. And based on the responses that we've seen and what we've heard from ownership and all, it doesn't seem like it's going to go the latter. Like it'll be like, oh, they have enough. Like they're clearly doing well without needing more. But when that point comes, we'll we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah. Okay, let us move on to the Subway Eat Fresh Cold Cut Combo Cup for the footlong trophy with cookies. And Subway cookies are fantastic, actually.
They are. They're good. They're goated. I
Yeah.
don't think you realize. If you've never had a
It
Subway
was
cookie,
really
you
the
have
best part
to.
of the meal.
It really is.
You know, they
especially
had
these
the
days.
the footlong cookie. I had one of those once.
Oh, I
What?
remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never got that. I never had one of those.
Oh,
That's a lot of
but
cookie.
that's a lot of cookie, but it's good cookies.
Mm-hmm.
What do you know? It was another Chelsea West Ham match.
Yeah. A
Chelsea getting
little
real familiar with a couple
London
teams these days.
West versus East London derby.
Mhm.
And Chelsea won 2-0, kind of as expected. And they get to is it their 6th consecutive Leagues Cup final now?
Oh, I actually didn't know. That's a good question. I
He's
didn't
like,
know.
oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah, I'm gonna take your
is
word
it?
for it.
God,
Yeah,
this
well, I know
guy.
it can't be FA Cup because we weren't there last year, but
Yeah.
yeah. No, yeah, I mean, the only surprise was that it wasn't a bigger scoreline, to be honest, right? They made it 2-0, I think, before the half, and but I mean, like West Ham made him work hard for it. I was really happy for Reading Canner because she scored a really nice goal. And what I loved was her decisiveness in that moment. So you had a missed clearance, or is West Ham trying to clear their lines, and Hamano puts pressure on one of the defenders, and so she didn't really. She basically it fell to Cannerid in the box, and Cannerid, like, the ball's floating to her, and she kind of takes a step back and then drives forward with the ball. Like, her first touch was taking her past the defender, and then she took another touch and just rifled one into the near post. And she's had a kind of a dry run lately. I think this is only her second or third goal contribution for club or country since like October. So it was good to see that. And then Hamano again was kind of responsible for the second goal. She put pressure on a defender who on the sideline who tried to play the ball into the middle of the park, but her teammate was under pressure by both Wrighton and Nushkin, and basically got ambushed. And Wrighton played Nushkin in, and who had an easy. Basically had an open net. So, and that was basically the match. I think they could have, that Canary could have had another goal. I think who was it? Oh, Hamano could have scored. I feel like there's one or two other players who could have scored, but yeah, job done. Nothing unexpected. But shout out to West Ham though. Making a run to the semifinals. Yeah, I think according to the commentator, they scored the most goals in the competition. In this competition, so
Yes.
which kind of makes sense, right? When you consider that City, Arsenal, and Chelsea didn't drop in until the quarterfinals, but still good for them. I think it's something that they can kind of stake their flag in, and hopefully, they can use that momentum and carry it through to the rest of the season to try to survive.
Because they'll need it.
Okay, and then the other one that we have already kind of mentioned was another Arsenal City game. This time, City won 2-1, thanks to Mary Fowler, who we said loves to score against Arsenal. Honestly, she could have had 3. She missed a penalty, but made up for it
She
in
could have
the.
had
blocked.
four.
She had a penalty
She
saved
could have had
after that.
4 honestly, because I wasn't so sure that offside call that she was truly offside. But
She was off. I saw
okay,
it. She was off.
okay.
She was off.
But yeah.
But yeah, she
Fowler
scores a
opened the
lot against
scoring.
Arsenal.
She does. She opened the scoring. Um, I'm getting confused on which games, which goals were hers. But yeah.
Viv looked prime Viv when she was driving in the midfield. Like she just took the ball and like I was like, oh, did Viv turn back the clock to 2019 or something? Because the way that she picked her head up and drove, and then found Fowler, and then that I thought Fowler went too far to the byline and like made the angle impossible for herself, but like the amount of power that she got on that shot, like because it hit the roof of the net. That was the first thing it hit. So it was like still rising. But that shot was truly amazing.
Yeah, that was really good. And then that was it for the first half. First half was 1-0 City. Second half, Caldente opened the scoring with scoring a penalty. This one, I believe, Stina Blackstenius drew the penalty, which honestly, I wasn't sure if it really was one or should have been called one.
I didn't think that any penalties called in this match were penalties, personally.
Yeah, they were soft.
But
I mean, the fact that they were both called on both sides, like, it's consistency.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's consistent, but like consistently bad.
No, yeah, they were both soft. They were both soft. Yeah, they were both soft.
I think, yeah, was it Rebecca Knack who got
Rebecca Knack? Yeah.
Yeah. She did get ball first, and like Stina, I mean, in the follow through, Stina she got right back up because I think even she was like, oh, I don't know if we'll get called. I'm going to keep going. And then it got called. But Caldente put it away. It was 1-1. And then there's another penalty. Fowler, or not, was it Fowler? Someone got squished.
No, it was Fowler. Yeah.
It was Fowler, yeah. Got squashed basically between Cooney Cross and one of the other defenders. I'm forgetting now. But that was called one. And she ended up missing that penalty, went straight down the middle. Van Domselaar read it pretty well and saved it. But then in the dying seconds, literally the dying seconds of the match, Fowler with left foot from, I think, just outside the box on the top of the box, whipped it in and put it through. And I think no one was expecting that to go in. I feel like Van Domselaar was kind of I think she thought it was
you could tell wide, like you could tell the whole movement. You could tell because Fowler's a shooter. Shooters shoot. I could tell. I was like, if they give her any space, she's gonna let it go, and I guarantee it'll go in because that's just how it goes for her. So
I mean, yeah, she got it, but I think either it just took her Van Domselaar off guard, or she thought it was going wide because she didn't really move after it was hit.
So that was the first time I've ever seen Ashley like stuck. And I think she just wasn't expecting a shot. I think she was like, I got two defenders around her. She's being pushed off the ball, pushed away from goal. Like, I think she was just like, my defenders got it. I just got to make sure nothing deflects my way.
And I think that
just like unloaded out of nowhere.
And I think that that's why she stayed rooted because like the window that Fowler had to get that shot was like minimal, like maybe like a 1 foot by 1 foot sort of situation. And I think that she really, because I was expecting the deflection when she shot the ball. It's like, okay, where's the deflection? No,
it looked like Daphne was playing for a deflection and not really playing for like a clear shot. And so like when there was no deflection, it was just like, holy shit, what the fuck?
Yes,
but I mean, if Fowler doesn't play those two matches, we beat City by a combined 5-1. So like, understand that like Fowler was the reason City even had a chance in both matches. So congrats to Fowler. You know, like I said, if you would have gave me the options beforehand, to me it played out the way I wanted it to play out against City because you're talking about playing a team like City twice over the course of 4 days. The chances of you beating a team like that twice in such a short time are slim to none in sports in general, like let alone women's soccer, like whatever, just in sports in general, playing a good team so often that quickly in between games, like it's hard to do, right? Like, especially for those of us who watch American sports and we know like how playoffs work, like it's hard to do to beat teams that good twice in a row like that. And so
Yeah.
I didn't really expect that we'd beat City twice, and that's why I was like, if we had to pick one, I would rather win the league match. But watching the way it played out was a little disappointing. But even then, even in the loss, I feel like we learned that Daphne was the number one goalkeeper, and it was the start, kind of like the start / continuation of Kira Cooney Cross, who is in immense form, just kind of continuing that immense form. So even in a loss, I wasn't too upset about it.
Yeah. And Van Domselaar still had some stellar saves in this one.
She had a lot of
I
great
think it
saves.
was a Fujino shot that was curling in, and
Mhm.
she got it right out, and that was really good. But I think, yeah, you're totally right. It's a lot harder for a winning team to beat the same team twice in a row than it is for the losing team to like fix their mistakes and figure out how not to lose again.
Yeah.
Um,
And again, like I know this is gonna sound like Arsenal fan making excuses, but just like for context, this was also a stretch where we talked about a couple podcast episodes ago where it was like I said this was going to be another tough stretch for Arsenal, the way that Juventus Champions League run was when Renee first got here, because over the course of 14 days, Arsenal had to play 5 matches, and those matches were Chelsea away, home in the FA Cup match against Bristol City, away to Man City, home against Man City, and then we'll talk about this match home against London City in the FA Cup. So I think just that run of matches in such a short amount of time, again, for a new manager who's playing Chelsea for the first time, you look at the way that those matches went in terms of officiating and how much went into those matches, just it's a lot. It's asking a lot from any team. And I think Arsenal handled it as well as they could have. And like I said, I'm disappointed with the loss as always, but given the competitions and things like that, I can live with not advancing in the Subway foot long combo milk cup. It's okay.
oh. Well, okay. If it did go to extra time, who do you think would have won? I still think City would have won.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't.
that's
Yeah, I don't think
but it goes.
Arsenal were
It
winning
goes.
that match.
It goes. Doesn't it go right? It went right. It would have went right to
It would have went
penalties.
right to penalties. Yeah, I don't think
Like
they
the
played extra
Okay,
time.
no extra time.
yeah.
Okay,
I think
okay.
in that case, well,
Mhm.
they didn't have Keating in at goal either. So I think, as much as I like Keating, I think had they had Keating, I'd feel more confident Arsenal would have won that penalty shootout.
I
But
wouldn't
I
be.
mean, again,
I would.
Van Domselaar was having a game, so like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could see her saving 2 or 3 penalty shots. But I just, and we'll talk about it with this London City match for Arsenal. I just think by that match, Arsenal's legs were gone. I just think that they were a tired club. I think that's a big reason why Fowler was even able to get that look. I think if they don't play 4 days before, Fowler probably doesn't even get that look at the end. I just think it was just one of those things where that's why I said I saw it coming, because you could tell Arsenal's defense was very much just like, let's just get through this fucking match. Like we're tired, we're done. Like we've seen this team already. Like let's just get to penalties and get this over with. And that's when Fowler hit him with the quick shot. And I think had it gone to penalties, probably. I mean, I don't know. I still think City win that match. I really do.
See, I think that if it would have went to penalties without Keating, Arsenal advanced to the final.
Well, that's interesting. We both feel like our teams would have lost had it gone to penalties.
Yes, that's hilarious.
But like I said, that's
but
not for like lack of ability. I just think that Arsenal were tired. Like I could see them missing a couple penalties. Like Caldente probably hits hers, and then like who was in at that point? Like I could see like Blackstenius missing her penalty. Like I could just see it.
okay, fair enough. How different were the lineups for both teams from the league's match versus this Subway match?
I think having Lazelle in over Wahhabi, especially to start the match, was a really big deal. Lazelle is a pretty versatile defender, but she's a defender first and not like one of those, oh, I'm a La Masia fullback sort of thing. So I'm going to do La Masia things. And so like, like I'm going to actually like, I think Naomi Lazelle comes in with the thought like, oh, I'm actually going to defend. I actually would have, based off of the matches that she has played, like the 3 matches that the last 3 matches the City has played. I would hope that she would have been ready to start the Arsenal League match at the Joy Stadium. I'm not saying the result would have been different. It would have just been nice to have an actual defending defender that wasn't Canuck. Like I think she changes a lot for City's calculus defending.
Yeah. Well, on Arsenal side, I think the tired legs is a big thing because the only player who was switched in and out of the lineup was Blackstonius was in for Beth Mead, but everyone else who started in the 4-3 win started this one as well. I mean, I
Who
guess
are the
like,
same
you
players
know,
that
if it
started
works
against
one,
Chelsea and Bristol, and like
yeah,
they played a lot.
So that, yeah, tired legs. But that's what happens when you've got to play several tournaments.
Yeah, I mean that's the downside of being good, right? You're in all the competitions, so now
More
you have to
games,
play
yeah.
all the matches.
Exactly. Okay, and then the final matches that just happened this past weekend were the FA Cup 5th round matches, and we had several WSL teams involved in this one. So we'll start with, I'll just run through the scores again. Aston Villa versus Brighton. Villa got the 3-2 win, so they'll be moving on to the next round. United beat the Wolves 6-0. Like we said, they've kind of had a very favorable draw so far. Maybe perks of being the reigning FA Cup winners. Liverpool beat Rugby Borough 2-0. Crystal Palace beat Newcastle 2-0. Arsenal beat the London City Lionesses 2-0. Man City beat Leicester 3-1. Sunderland versus Portsmouth, that was the only non-WSL teams involved, 2-0 Sunderland won, and then Chelsea beat Everton 4-1. Yeah, once again, all the WSL teams who played except for Brighton and Everton, they move on.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was looking for the stat for the Leagues Cup. This is courtesy of Sophie Lawson's Blue Sky. Quote,
Yes, I meant to say
for
that.
the 8th time in 14 seasons, the League Cup final will be contested by 2 of Arsenal, Chelsea, and City, and for the 14th time, so 14 times out of 14 seasons, will be won by either Arsenal, Chelsea, or City.
Yes.
And no one
Thank
takes
you.
this
I
club.
had that pulled up, but I meant to say it.
And no one, like, it's very clear no one takes this seriously. Like, even the amount of
Well,
times
that's the
that
thing,
Emma
right?
Hayes
Like, yeah,
won it, like, no one took it seriously.
none of those 3 clubs take it as seriously as the stats would dictate. Like, they're not going into it looking to win that cup, and yet those 3 always end up winning that cup. Crazy. But I mean, I guess I can start us off with Arsenal in the FA Cup match because we talk about their tired legs, and I just want to point out really real quick, just to highlight how tired their legs were. They started and played a couple of their academy prospects, which I just want to say in that match, Katie Reed, like, holy shit. Like, Arsenal have found themselves another developmental defender. Like, she was outstanding. She's really tall, like a really big bodied out there, like, almost like a Lottie Wilben-Moy, just like really gazelle-like in terms of her pace. It was really fun watching her. Like, she really put in a great match. So I'm excited to see more from her in the future. But we saw a start from Jenna Neiswanger, and she started at left wing. So to give you an idea of how Arsenal played that match, we had Jenna Neiswanger starting at left wing. Quickly that deteriorated, and because Jenna was still new to the club, this is technically the preseason for NWSL players, so she's not even match fit yet. And I think it was probably asking a little bit too much too soon to kind of go into a position you don't really play. Your first match for Arsenal. And so we got to see Katie McCabe at left wing throughout a lot of this match. As an Arsenal fan watching this match, it was hilarious. Just like a lot of the tactics, it very much screamed, give us a break. We need some time off of soccer. I'm putting a team that I think might win. Like this was very much like one of those FIFA lineups where you're like, I could probably win this in a simulation. Like, let me just put together all of the academy prospects. Let me throw my defender at center back. Like, let me throw my defender at the 9. Like, let me try all the dumb shit that I want to try, and we should still win this like 2-1. And that's exactly what Arsenal did. Like, they did a lot of strange things Renee was trying out there, and they still came away with a very sloppy 2-0 win. I think out of all the teams that round, that final score flatters Arsenal a lot because they did not look like a 2-0 winning team. But again, I think that match very much showed how tired Arsenal were. Like they just looked like a team that was slogging through it, that was just trying to see the end of it, that did enough to win. Don't get me wrong, like they did enough to win, and they still look good in attack. But you could just tell as a whole that match, they were just ready for this little break that they were going to get. So congratulations to them for moving on, and I think they survived another rough patch of their season, which I think is probably the last rough patch that they have outside of Champions League, which we'll get into with the draws. But yeah, it was just I just want to talk about it because it was funny. We saw Katie McCabe at left wing. Like that is something I never thought I would see in my life. And we saw a masterclass from Cooney Cross. Like she had an amazing game. Her great form continues. I love what I'm seeing from her. And so yeah, got the win. Move on. Hopefully, I never see McCabe up that far ever again in my life. Because what the fuck?
Oh, you will.
Like Chloe Kelly, please. Chloe Kelly, please get out of these cup ties and get on the pitch because Arsenal need another winger in the worst way possible. Like that is crazy to me. But to be fair to McCabe, like she actually did pretty good. Like there was a couple of times where you're like, if you had a little bit more ability in the final third, like you might have scored a goal or two. So good for her.
Yeah.
Also, Amanda Ilstedt is back.
Yes, she's back. Yes.
Yeah, she actually started. She's been
The City match,
not
right?
started. She's been off the bench from the Bristol City match.
Yeah.
She came in, was the first, and so basically, 2025, she's back from I think maternity leave. Do you think Michelle Kang is mad that they lost this match?
I think
She's big
I don't
mad.
think she's mad. I think Michelle King is too busy trying to focus on what players she can get from Leon to DC. So
You're right.
Yeah.
sorry.
Doing what she said. Anyway, we won't go there.
I'm not gonna have it. That was rude.
Marc or Thom Bomb want to talk about your teams? Straightforward.
So, sorry, you go ahead, Tom.
Biggest thing about this match is Carolyn finally scored her debut City goal and gave us a nice little bow. I thought that was cute. I liked that a lot. Bunny came in at halftime, scored right after halftime. We did a watch along for this for Shades of Blue podcast, and I know that I think Charlie said it was like, have you ever seen one of your coworkers be at work but not want to be at work? Because that's Bunny Shaw right now. I was like, yeah, it is. But yeah, it was a relatively straightforward match against a team that can't really score, but yet City found a way to let them score a goal. So that was a little bit disappointing, but it's a knockout competition, so just survive and advance at this point.
Yeah.
Marc.
Yeah. So, well, the big thing that happened in this match was Everton took the lead. They actually scored off of an Olympico in the 17th minute, and so Everton became only the third team this season to take a lead on Chelsea, joining Leicester and Celtic randomly. But other than that, but after that, Macario scored a penalty. Ashley Lawrence. So I guess Lucy Bronze must be hurt or something because Ashley Lawrence has been getting some run at right back lately, and I just really like Ashley Lawrence. I wish she was like the starter, the preferred player over Bronze. One of the things I appreciate is her ability to take on players, and so it was taking on her opponent. I think it must be the opposing fullback, but basically, she takes on her opponent. She gets taken down at the edge of the box. I wasn't sure if it was out or in. It's another one of those. But they get, Chelsea get the call as we always do, I guess. But and Macario scores a penalty. Ramirez makes it 2-1. She was actually right at the end of the half. Cuthbert plays like a long looping ball. I think the keeper probably should come out and either come out and deal with it, or at least stand at the edge of the area and try to be big. Instead, she kind of hesitates. She's caught in no man's land, and Ramirez chips it over her. Ramirez almost scored again on a header. It actually came off the post, and Hamano cleaned it up to make it 3-1, and then Baltimore scored a penalty at the end to make it 4-1. But yeah, it was a pretty, other than going down early, it was a pretty academic win for Chelsea.
Nice. The quarterfinal draw has already happened for the FA Cup, and so those matches will be played on March 9th. We have Chelsea at home versus Crystal Palace. Man United will play at home against Sunderland. Man City against Aston Villa, and Arsenal against Liverpool.
We already know who's going to go through, more or less.
More or less.
Pretty much. United's going to beat Sunderland. Arsenal should beat Liverpool. And Chelsea should beat Palace.
Yeah, I feel like the City Villa one is the only one
It's
that
probably the
maybe,
biggest toss-up, yeah.
Yeah.
But even that,
But
like,
even
City
that.
should be fine.
Yeah. No, it kind of, you brought out the stats about how the results of the League Cup the last few years, and like I feel like we're gonna see the same thing with the FA Cup, and it kind of reminds me of our earlier conversation of there's a big 3 or 3.5 if we want to include United, and then there's the rest, and so it's just like all these trophies come down to the same teams.
Yeah.
Can't
Which
make
can
everyone
get kind
else get involved with their women's team. Like, I wish we could, because, there should be more teams competing for these trophies. Absolutely.
And I wouldn't even call United like a half a team, because like them winning the FA Cup was the first time that any one of the, like, in the last 14 years that any one of our 3 teams did not win a trophy. Like, and so like that's a really damning indictment on like this, just the depth of the league. Like you have 3 different trophies over the span of 14 years. So that's 42 trophies, and 41 of them have gone.
All of them go to one of the 3 clubs. Yeah.
Whew. That's stark.
We'll get there. We'll get there. I say as I don't know if we actually will, but hopefully.
You know what competition England teams don't do great in is the Champions League, and that also had a draw since the last time we recorded.
That is true. Should we just talk about that real quick?
I feel like just real quick, just get all the draw stuff out the way.
Yeah, we'll do all the draw stuff. Yeah, so
because those matches aren't
League...
until March, so we won't talk about the matches. But
correct. So I believe the first leg is going to be March 18th and March 19th. But this draw, I'll do the teams that are not WSL teams first: Bayern versus Lyon and Wolfsburg versus Barcelona, which means two of our teams will be playing against each other. Arsenal is not one of those. Arsenal got Real Madrid, but City versus Chelsea is one of the quarterfinals, and that means City will be playing Chelsea not just 2 times, but 4 times.
4 times in 12 days. 4 times in 12 days.
Good.
Tell us how you feel about that, for real.
So it's I feel like when it comes to Champions League, a lot of people tend to say they want to see their team play a team from another country. Like, it's more interesting. Like, they don't want to see domestic ties in the Champions League. I kind of disagree, though. I think the Champions League can add an edge to a rivalry, to a domestic rivalry. So from that perspective, I'm looking forward to it. I was kind of hoping we would get at least one sort of English derby with all 3 teams making it to the knockout rounds. And actually, so if you looked at the draw, The only rule was that you couldn't be drawn against a team that you were in the same
A
group
winner.
as. Yeah. So I think it was City got drawn first, and then Barcelona got drawn, and it was like, oh, they can't face City. And I just knew that Chelsea was going to be drawn. I just, in my soul, I was like, oh, it's going to be Chelsea. And it sure was. It sure was.
I think that the probably the worst part about the draw is that regardless of whether City find a way to like beat Chelsea on aggregate in a two-leg tie, or Chelsea goes ahead and advances, like you still play Barca in the semis, and like I think for
all roads lead to Barca. Yep.
like I think City has to be like pissed as far as like from the standpoint of like, but we played them already in our group. Like I want to be as far away from them in the bracket as possible. So if I do have to see them again, I see them in the final. And Chelsea's probably like, damn, we can't get away from this team to get to a final because we have to go through this team to get to the final.
Yeah.
I will say though, I mean, like, not previewing too much, but like in the last 12 months, both City and Chelsea have beaten Barcelona, right? Like that did happen.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there should be like some confidence, I think. And Barcelona, they lost a game in the league. Is this the same Barcelona as the past couple
Don't
of
do
years?
that. Don't do that.
No,
Don't do that.
I
Don't do
actually
that.
do.
Don't
No,
do
because
that.
like as a fan, I'm pessimistic, but objectively, I don't know if this Barcelona
Yes,
team has it
yeah.
like the past couple of years.
Okay, but what are your, I guess, of the 4 matches, what do you expect in terms of how many points, or let's just say how many wins, draws, losses that each of your teams would get?
Ooh. I'm going to say they're going to draw in the league. I think Chelsea will win one of the Champions League ties and they'll draw the other. I could see City winning the final though.
So
Right.
I think
Just
for
purely because
me,
Chelsea won't care about that final.
I think there's
Honestly, like, let's be honest about it. Like
that's part of it. Yes, I also think that Man City has done like so in consecutive weeks. We had to play United in the league and then United in a cup, and then we played Arsenal in the league and Arsenal in a cup. So I think based off of that experience, if I were to say anything were to happen, I could see a situation in which we lose the League's Cup, win one of the Champions League ties, the one at home, lose on the road, and then win the other Champions League tie. Wait, no, because it's league tie.
I know the league matchup is at home for you.
Okay. Yeah, we would lose the league match, but win the Champions League. Like honestly, like I think that's just like maximum chaos. And so like, yeah, let's just go for that and like beat Chelsea in the Champions League and advance and see Barca. I love that like we're just giving Wolfsburg no shot against Barca at all. Like we didn't even like it was like, yeah, they're playing 2 matches,
like,
but
no,
like
Barca,
no,
no.
Barca's advancing.
This is not the same Wolfsburg. We can say that
no,
much.
yeah, this isn't that Wolfsburg.
Yeah.
Do we know yet if these Champions League matches will be played at the main stadiums?
I think they have to. I know the UEFA has minimum regulation, so like I'm almost certain Chelsea would have to play at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, and I think they have to play at the Etihad.
All right. Well then, Marc, what you said before may come into play.
Yeah.
Ooh, the big stage.
Big stage.
But then they're playing a team that also isn't used to a big stage, so
right.
Yeah.
Kind of cancels that out, I feel like.
Yeah.
How y'all feeling about Real Madrid?
Yeah, I feel like Arsenal had the best case scenario they absolutely could have had, given everything that was on the table. It sounds crazy, but this is the women's side we're talking about, not the men's side. And this could come back to bite me, but I don't fear Real Madrid at all. Like Arsenal should win that draw. Period. Point blank. Like Arsenal should win that draw, find themselves in the semifinal. It may not be easy. It may not be a blowout, but I think for a team that was able to beat Bayern in the midst of a lot of negativity going on, to then follow it up with being able to beat Juventus twice on the trot, like real close together. I think that they can do it. I think that this was a great side of the bracket as well, because we're talking about City and Chelsea have to go through Barcelona, and even though this could be tough, Arsenal would see the winner of Bayern Lyon. And as much as we want to say Lyon is going to go past Bayern pretty easily, you just never know, because Bayern are a team that on any day can win a match. So you never know. I do think at the end, Arsenal are going to have to go through Lyon to get to that final if they want it, which is going to be a really tough proposition to have to go through. But there is a chance that they could see Bayern. And if that's the case, I honestly give Arsenal a little bit of the edge in that matchup, because, again, you're talking about a team that knows they can beat the German side, and you're talking about an Arsenal team that currently is still playing really well. Like, despite kind of the bumps in the road against Chelsea and City in the League Cup, like, this is a team that is still, more times than not since Renee has taken over, has not only won matches but done so in dominating fashion. And so I think it'll be really interesting to see how Renee handles Champions League life, especially in the knockout stage. But I just think in terms of what could have happened, this was the best draw all around Arsenal could have got. They got Real Madrid. They were able to avoid, Barcelona. They were able to avoid any of the English teams this round. So their path, and honestly, they won't have to play any English team until the final. So they are very much in a very, very favorable draw. And it just shows how important getting Jonas out was, and it shows how important Renee winning those Champions League matches in the group stage were, because they are I couldn't have asked for better. So I'm excited. I think for me, dream case scenario would be seeing Chelsea in the final and then ripping their heart out. I honestly, that is the dream case scenario. Like, if we do that, I honestly think them winning the WSL won't even matter, because it'll be they are the club in the WSL, and Marc can admit it or not, but I guarantee you Chelsea right now are solely focused on that Champions League title. They want that trophy in the worst way possible.
Obsessed about it, absolutely.
Yeah, they are. They're obsessed about it. And if Arsenal, like I said, just dream case scenario, if they face Arsenal in that final and still somehow lose that, like after going through City, after going through Barcelona and losing to Arsenal in that final, and Arsenal get their second Champions League trophy and still remain the only English team to win that competition, they will.
Oh God!
I'm telling you right now, that WSL
that will be,
championship won't matter.
You might not hear from me.
That win will be worth WSL championships. That win right there will be worth 10 WSL championships. So we're far away from that.
Wrong.
We got to get past Real Madrid for that.
I want to clean something up that we said. So right now, the Champions League matches for City and Chelsea are scheduled to be at the Joy Stadium and at Kings Meadow. That stated both matches happened during a men's international break.
I was just about to look up the men's schedule. I was like, there's got to be.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that they will do the right thing and put those in the bigger stadiums.
Okay.
I mean, it would be a dumb business decision among anything else. Like, right. Chelsea sold out Stamford Bridge versus Barca. No, I have to assume that they're going to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we make a pact, a deal, that if any one of our teams makes it to the final, you guys all have to fly to Lisbon and we all go?
I don't
know if I can do that.
Actually. Like,
I don't know if I can do that this year.
I might need Michelle Kang to fund that.
If we got Michelle Kang to help us out, I'll be there. But
maybe I'll start an OF.
Yeah, right. Well,
hey, listen.
That's right. No, we'll
listening
make it
to
happen. We'll make it happen.
Just
But yeah,
saying,
these
there
are
might.
going to be fun Champions League matches, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to it for sure.
Yeah.
I want to ask this, Mark. Like,
Hmm.
how disappointed, upset, crash out would you be if City just get past you guys?
It
Truly,
would be
like as a Chelsea
so.
fan, what is the thought right now? Like, is the thought our biggest test is going to be Barcelona in the semifinal, or is the thought like we do have to worry about City?
It's we do have to worry about City because I think that they are potentially getting healthy, and certain players like Miedema, like Mary Fowler, are hitting form at the right time.
Yeah.
Fujino, you mentioned, had a phenomenal game versus Arsenal. So it's like they have the players to hurt Chelsea, and I mean, like it's a knockout competition, you know. So like if you can just, I don't know, like kind of break up the game, make it ugly just for 2 games versus Chelsea and take your chances. Like, and I think City are capable of doing that. I mean, like even in the first matchup where I think Chelsea were definitely the better team, it was 0-0 until the 60th,
70th minute. So yeah, 65th,
70th.
70th. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think there's very much between these teams. Like I always the actual matchups between City and Arsenal and Chelsea, like I always respect those teams. Those teams can always beat each other. You know, like those are
Mm.
like a lot of these match. Like when we're talking about our teams, right? Like you kind of the talent level tends to be huge. So where you go into a match pretty comfortable. But when we play each other, it's like it's totally different. It's like anything could happen. So and like the
Yeah.
bigger the stage, the more unpredictable it is for me. So
Mm-hmm.
You know what? This is a good segue into talking about some of the transfers because obviously both teams have picked up some pretty big players. Um, City has already seen Caroline play and score, and she's going to be a huge boost when they play against Chelsea in the uh, Champions League. But I think, Chelsea also in the last second got Kira Walsh in the transfer window, who also has made her debut. Germa, of course, I don't know if she's going to be match fit in the next month. She's still nursing an injury.
the last thing Bob Pastor said is she may start training after the international break. So I think we may
And
see
you
her.
and you notice that Emma didn't call her in for the She
Yeah.
Believes
Yeah.
Cup. So
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, she's letting her rest. Yeah. Emma said that
Emma's
she was
letting her
letting
rest. Yeah.
Germa rest. Yeah.
Mhm.
Almost, it's like
Because Emma was
giving.
asked about Germa specifically, and Emma was like, "No, I'm letting her heal up and rest and get kind of acclimated to the new move." So
Yeah.
there's been a lot of that. Plus, the U.S. have a lot of their own issues in terms of trying to figure out their roster going forward for the future. So
Mhm.
Fair enough. I was just gonna ask. I was like, how much do you think Emma wants Chelsea to win a Champions
well,
League?
that too. I guarantee you that's part of it. I guarantee you that's part
Yeah.
of it too.
like,
Obviously, but
Yeah.
that is definitely a motivation. I
Yeah.
can't see how it wouldn't be.
Um. But yeah, I mean, okay. Curious to see if Germa will be back for. Maybe not the first leg, but maybe the second leg she'll be there. So,
I don't think she'll be back for the
let's see.
first, probably the second, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Mhm. That sounds right.
So I guess yeah. On paper, it may seem like or right now has the better team or has been doing much better. But like you said, Mark, when they actually start playing, anything can happen.
Mhm.
Some of the other transfers that we mentioned, Arsenal got Jenna Neiswanger and Chloe Kelly in the 11th hour, who I'm just ready for her to come join or to actually get on the pitch for us
Play.
again.
She's cup tied.
Yeah.
She's tied for a lot of matches,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But
But
we
I
did
think
see
she'll be a
Neiswanger.
massive help. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are some of the other big ones? Alison Swaby for Crystal Palace, boosting their defense.
Didn't we say that they needed a ball playing center back? And what is Alison Swaby? Ball
A
playing
ball
center
playing
back.
center back.
Yes.
But they also need an attack, and they didn't
Yeah, I
get
was like,
none
now
of
they need is
that.
an attack. They boosted their defense with the midfield, but now they need attack for sure. we mentioned, or Marc mentioned Kelly Gago several times for Everton, who has definitely made a huge impact. And Maren Mjelde from Chelsea, is that a loan or is that a permanent transfer?
So she left in the summer.
Okay.
Yeah, I forget where she signed with, but no, so she's back in the league now with Everton. No, that I didn't even know that happened until Chelsea were playing Everton. And I was like, Mielda, that's a name I haven't heard in a while. But yeah, I mean, I think I would also consider that a huge transfer for Everton. Yeah.
Yeah. The other one I wanted to point out was for Tottenham, Lisa Kopp, the Dutch goalkeeper. She's started 3 matches now, I think, in the league. And kind of it's between her and Rebecca Spencer now for that number 1 spot. I think she's done fine so far. Hasn't conceded too many, but they haven't necessarily won either. So not all on her, obviously.
Why the Chloe Kelly loan also had a reverse loan. So Laura
Laura
Weinreuther,
Weinreuther from
Yes.
is also on loan at City from Arsenal. And with Lazelle just getting back into health, Shamitsu's still not training fully with the squad. Like you can't just keep on trotting Layla Wahhabi and Kirsten Kasperai out there and not get some help at fullback. So we needed a body, so we got a body.
Yeah, I was gonna say in terms of the Laura move, that was a little bit surprising, but I also think it's telling in terms of how Renee wants to run that team. Like the assumption that I had was correct in that she wants her her outside backs to essentially also be wing backs and push up a lot. And Laura is, in her defense, she's herself coming back from a long-term injury, so she's kind of getting healthy. But I thought it was interesting that she was the one loaned out because Arsenal could also kind of use depth. Like they don't need her, but in this sport, you're always an injury away kind of from things happening. And I think even with Niswanger coming in, they could have used kind of that outside back depth. But I think the fact that she was loaned out just speaks to how Renee wants to play, because I don't think Laura fits that play style at all. Like she's not necessarily fast. She doesn't really have the pace. She's not too good on the ball. Like she's not terrible, but she's not the type of outside back that you're going to see push up with the ball the way that you see Emily Fox do, the way that you'll see Jenna Niswanger do, the way that Steph Catley tends to do, right? So I thought that was an interesting loan move, just in that regard. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We've got another 6 matches this upcoming weekend. Match week 14, starting with Man United versus Crystal Palace. That one should be a pretty straightforward win for United. I would be very happy to see Crystal Palace get some points, both because we love Crystal Palace here. We want them to stay up, but also dropped United points is great for Arsenal and good for City as well, for those Champions League spots. Then we have the North London derby. Arsenal versus Tottenham is going to be at
Should
Tottenham
also be the
Hotspur
Chloe Kelly
Stadium.
debut.
Chloe Kelly debut, hopefully, yes. We have Chelsea versus Everton, Leicester City versus Aston Villa, West Ham versus Brighton, and Man City versus Liverpool. I think besides the derby, of course, Brighton versus West Ham is the one that catches my eye, because it's one of those where West Ham is getting better, Brighton's not getting better, and they could kind of meet in the middle. And it seems like it could go either way.
Yeah.
Hard to agree there. I feel like this is one of the rare weeks where you look at the schedule, and I think pretty much we can at least pencil in a lot of these results, right? Like we all feel like United should handle Palace. We all feel like Arsenal will probably handle Tottenham, even though that's a huge derby match. Like Chelsea, Everton. I think maybe Leicester, Villa, but
That's
I
the match.
also don't feel like. Well, that's the match on paper that's going to be closest, but I don't feel like in terms of how the teams are playing and from what we've seen all season, like that match doesn't excite me. Like I'm not
Oh,
looking at
sure.
that match like, oh my god, I can't wait to watch that match. Like, yeah, it's going to be the closest in terms of result probably, but it doesn't make me feel like I want to watch it. Like I agree with Deepti. I think in terms of matches that could be close that I would want to watch as like a neutral, it's going to be West Ham and Brighton, for sure. But
Yeah.
I also hate watch City Liverpool just to see if Liverpool can do the impossible and just make Tom's life even more hell going into some Champions League madness.
Listen. I already have Olivia Smith scoring a brace at Joy Stadium in my head. So
He's like, I'm
um,
preparing for it.
I was like, okay, so we need to score 3 goals in this match. We need to score at least 3 goals. Got it.
I'm not gonna waste my time hate watching Chelsea. They're gonna beat Everton. And
Well, I was gonna say I am actually curious to see how Everton play. Like they're playing Chelsea for the second time in a week. I do think that like
Yeah.
they're kind of on the up. I'm not listen. I'm expecting
if,
Chelsea
if
to
they
win.
can take an early goal lead, maybe this time they'll put all 10 players, just line up in front of goal and just like let
That's
Chelsea have
it.
800 shots for 90 minutes and just say fuck it.
Yeah.
Brian Sorensen's got to be sitting somewhere like, why me? Like, why is it I have to play them twice in a week?
Uh,
And then
well,
Gareth
That's
Taylor
true.
saying like, oh, well, do you want to play
At
them
least
4
it's not
times all
Champions
day?
League, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the first time Chelsea played Everton or Chelsea won 5-0, and then this past match they won 4-1. So I'm expecting Chelsea to
9-1
score
combined.
3 this time.
Yeah, that'll be
Just
improvement.
one
Yes.
less, yes.
Maybe it'll be a 3-2 match.
Yeah,
There you go.
there you are. So, yeah. Any others? Treb, I
I
think you
I
said it perfectly.
I like the to
Yeah,
still
it's just
I still to me the Leicester Villa match is big. They're gonna play this at the King Power. I know Leicester's form isn't great, um, but it's not exactly like Villa's been setting the world on fire either. Um, so I and like both of them need the points so that they can get away from like put more room between them and Crystal Palace because like the worst possible result for both of these squads to me
is
would
a
be a draw.
draw. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
about to say Palace wants them to draw, and then if they can get a draw over United, that would be huge for them.
Yeah.
correct.
But I don't know. I could see Villa Leicester ending in a draw, but again, like that's not a match I want to see as a neutral. Like all respect to those teams, I like watching Villa most times, but that matchup, it doesn't excite me. Like it's one of those matches where I'm like, I'll probably go. Like what time is that match? Like I'll probably go do something. I'll probably catch up on sleep at that time. Yeah, 7 a.m. Like I'll probably start cooking breakfast around that time, to be honest.
I
7
mean,
a.m. match
I
for
I
me,
feel
like
like
yeah.
I feel like to me like watching this like I'll be watching this match in like in the thought process like we know that Aston Villa has a threshold to score a lot of goals based off of their attacking talent. And we also know that Leicester City is one of the better defensive teams in the league. Like outside of like outside of the top three, they are second in goals conceded. So and even like so they're fifth in the league, but for like even for a bottom place team that's pretty good. Like obviously we know that we've noted that they are having lots of problems scoring already. I think that they can tamp down Villa's attack at home. And I think that that's probably going to be important for them and maybe being at home they'll feel more comfortable scoring.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Okay. The last thing that I do want to talk about is the whole Sam Kerr, Chrissy Muse saga, but mostly Sam Kerr. Well, it's funny, but it also there's kind of a second storyline to it that is quite serious and something that I think a lot of women can attest to.
Mhm.
But we'll talk about the funny thing first. Like, um, she was initially charged with what's the correct legal term?
Racial
Yes,
aggravation.
racially aggravated harassment. Um, after calling a police officer, quote, fucking stupid and white, um, after this situation that occurred. And I just remember when the news first came out, all it said was that Sam had been charged with racial aggravation and
It
all this
very much
like
painted her as
hell.
like the
Yeah,
aggressor in a situation against
exactly.
someone else of color. Like it was, let's not
Yeah.
Yes.
sugarcoat it. The first time we heard the news broke, it left a lot of us confused because it very much painted Sam Kerr as like she was the one abusing someone of color being racist. And everyone was like, that seems completely unlike, like you never really know people, especially like athletes
Hmm.
from afar, but it very much felt out of character. And then almost like a day later, pretty fast, like we learned it was actually her doing what she did. And then everyone
Hmm.
was kind of like, oh, it was like that
Mm.
little Yachty meme. It was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That one sounds about right. So
Yeah. Um, but people are already talking about how it can spark a debate about like free speech and race and how her saying that and calling him stupid and white is like equivalent to actual forms of racial abuse and whatever slurs as they say. Some people called it a literal slur, and I think even the like taxi driver who she didn't even say it to his face. I think she said it to a different police officer. Um, and I don't know. It's silly. It's was made into a way bigger deal, I think, that part than what the actual like situation entailed, which more details have come to light now after the trial. But basically, Sam and Christy were both like in a cab after a night out, and then during the car ride, Sam's that like she like felt sick, and I think she like threw up outside the window, and then the driver kind of rolled it back up and like refused uh to let them out and like was like speeding, swerving, and basically making it a very like kind of scary ride for them. And so the Christy and Sam said they didn't know, like they kind of felt scared. They didn't know what was going to happen because he wouldn't let them out. He wasn't listening to them, like uh something about cleaning up the mess as well, blah blah blah. And basically they had to smash the window in order to have him let them out. And then that's when they got to the police station, and that's when the police officer didn't believe their story, and when Sam called the police officer stupid and white. Um, so yeah, like initially when it came out, there was a misunderstanding. Then when people saw it, was like, oh, she called him that. It was kind of a funny story. But now that we have like actual details of what happened, it is actually more of a serious thing. And I feel like that's the thing that should be talked about,
Mhm.
because it is a big issue and it's something that all of us can like attest to. So it's just, yeah. Long story short, it is kind of something that you can like laugh about, but also there's an underlying more serious topic about it where, even people or women in such like a with high fame and like I guess status in this area can feel a bit scared and like also have to like keep an eye out and look up and maintain awareness of what's happening around them.
yeah, I mean that's the serious part, right? Like it's more than just what she said, which was funny, but it's the fact that they were essentially kidnapped, right? Like if they were
Mhm.
locked in this traveling vehicle and basically not allowed to leave and had to force their way out, like they were kidnapped. That's a at least in America, by American law, like that is a holding someone against their will at the very least. So you can't do that. That's absolutely not allowed, and it's absolutely understandable that anyone in that situation, especially women, like yes, do everything you can to get out of that situation. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and for the cops to not believe that story, I think like it's one thing to be like, okay, we're gonna look at the crime scene and take the investigation before we kind of deliver any judgment on it, but to just outright from the very start say, well, we don't really believe your account of what happened, like that's not right, and that's not good either, you know,
Yeah.
because at that point, like that early in the investigation, what evidence do you have that they were lying, other than a cab driver saying so, you know?
Also, so I just read this just to confirm, but like the officer, they were dismissive, and at one point he referred to her as Little Missy, and I
Hmm.
just have to
Yeah.
say, I don't think a woman should be uh legally liable for anything she does after being called Little Missy. Like that's fucking
Boom.
ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Like,
Yeah, that's
but
like, yeah.
and they were in a stressful situation, right? And
Yeah.
so like I think
Well,
there
that's
was
what I mean. You
another.
literally got kidnapped. Like you literally were abducted, essentially.
Right.
Like you had
You
someone
had no
driving
idea what was
reckless
going
and
on.
locking you in a car. Yeah.
And
I wish you would
so,
try to lock me in a car. I'm absolutely breaking your window. I don't give a fuck.
right.
Well, was it like, was that the part of the story that was not believable for the police? Like, here these two women are, like, there's no way that these two women could have broken out like the window of a back seat. Like, because I've seen uh Sam Kerr kick things. I've seen Christine Ewith kick things. I know that they could
Plus, I think
absolutely kick out.
I think that's the thing, right? You're not dealing with just two average women. You're dealing with two professional athletes who
Right.
can absolutely kick a window out
Kick a
pretty
window. Yeah.
probably fairly easily. You know what I mean? Like probably as easily as I can, as big as I am, right? So I think maybe that's it. Maybe I mean again, when you deal with police, and this was in another country, so I don't want to speak too broadly on a country I don't know about, but like here in America, when it comes to police and their ability to discern situations, like they just see drunk women and they think that the drunk woman is the cause for all of her problems. And that's a big
Yeah.
reason why sexual assault goes unpunished and unreported and underreported, and why rape goes underreported and unsolved, because the thought process for a lot of those in authority here in America is drunk woman, everything she says is a lie. She's just drunk, ignore her. And that's a huge issue. So
Yeah. They
I'm sure
just
that played a part of it.
he didn't give them any benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really what it always boils down to.
He apparently said to Sam after they explained their situation, he dismissed and doubted their claim of being held hostage. At one point, he says, "quote, do you think a taxi driver that was going to rape and kill you would drive you to the police station? No." And then that's when Sam Kerr responds with like, "You are a white privileged person. You're a white privileged man." And then he was like, "Don't be racist."
That's so annoying. Because I remember reading about the white privilege quote, and it's like
Yeah.
calling someone privileged or is not
Calling
a
someone
racist
white isn't
aggravation.
racist. Like, let's be honest. Like,
Yeah,
that's not racist. That's not a slur. That's literally what you are. And I think
yeah,
for an officer to say, do you think someone doing that would drive you to the police station, needs to understand that, she doesn't know she's being driven to a police station while being locked in a car and driven away against her will.
Hmm.
Like,
that would still be kidnapping, by the way.
I mean, yeah, like you
Yeah, no
driving to
matter
a
where
place
you
that
go.
doesn't matter. You're still holding someone against their
Yeah,
will. Like,
my final destination of a police station or a hospital, like against my will, does not matter. Like, you took me somewhere I didn't want to go.
without me knowing it. Like that's it, it's crazy. Like that's the part, like Deepti said, like there's the funny part to it, and then there's a serious part. And I think that's the serious part that people should be kind of questioning in terms of the authority aspect. Like, why are all these things happening, and why are you treating victims like that? Because again, if this is how they treat two prominent athletes, like I wonder how regular women in that country get treated. Like, holy shit, that's
Hmm.
so scary.
Mhm.
Yeah. Bet.
And just a quick note, maybe to end on a lighter note, Sam Kerr should also be training with the team and possibly returning after upcoming international break.
So even more depth and even more talent to an already loaded team. Fun. This is
something
great.
like that.
Yes, within the next
Tom,
month,
please have your
she
team do
should be
something
back.
about this in the Champions League. Please.
Sam Kerr,
Don't do
the ACAB hero that we didn't know we needed.
Oh. Okay. 2.5 hours. Pretty good.
Yeah, we had a lot
A
to talk
lot to
about.
catch up on.
We had
A lot to
lot
catch
to
up
talk
on. It was
about.
worth it. It was nice. It was worth it.
Yep.
Definitely worth it. Any last thoughts before we sign off?
I think you can tell that all of the teams are going to benefit from the international break because they need the rest. I will be interested to see who gets called up. I know that Serena has already made her list, and we've already said that Chloe Kelly's not on it. It's going to be interesting to see how Serena fills that box-to-box role, especially with Stanway being injured for the Euros.
My quick thought, we call this the business end of the season typically. Well, March is going to be all business with the Subway Cup final, FA Cup quarterfinals, Champions League quarterfinals. So, yeah, it's going to be really fun.
Yep. This is the time of year that we all, well, not we all, but I think for our three teams, this is the time of year that we really focus on because now, like we talked all episode about United and how well they've done. This is the make or break for the top three in terms of who's going to have that chance at Champions League next year. I do think the WSL title's kind of already been decided, but even then, like there's still so many other competitions and there's so much left to play for. So I think it's going to be a real fun run. I know for Arsenal, just like as an Arsenal standpoint, we're a little bit lucky. Like we're going to hit a very favorable part of our season right now. So Renee has done really well to navigate what has been two really tough stretches under her early managerial career. And I think if she can finish strong and just get this team to the finish line with some excitement and some hope for the future, I think that's all we can ask for. So, but this is going to be a fun part of the season. A lot to be decided.
Amen.
Crystal Palace, please save yourselves. Oh my God. I want you guys to stay up so bad. Like, please, Eagles, please.
Please.
Ugh.
All right. You can
Get
find us
United for me.
on
Do something for me.
You can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Hit that follow button to stay up to date when new episodes drop. Leave a rating and review if you can. We would love to hear your feedback. There are 12 teams, 6 matches, 4 hosts. There are a lot more matches this time. You're listening to The 12. Boys, you better save up for Lisbon. And we'll see you next week.